وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين آمين يا رب العالمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وسبحان الله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العزيز الحكيم. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. حمدا شاكرين حمدا نائمين حمدا يعافي نعمه ويكافي مجيده. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي للجلال وجهك الكريم وعظيم سلطانك. Allah, indeed we have wronged ourselves, our soul, so forgive us. Ya Ghaffar, forgive us our sins and the excess committed in our affairs. And unless you forgive us and have mercy upon us, we will be among the losers. Right here, we are indeed blessed and grateful to be given the opportunity to hold the 12th annual one-day online seminar on English language teaching 2020 to share knowledge, learn things we have not known, collaborate and listen respectively to each other. Ya Rahman, through this online seminar, help us to gain new knowledge that shall be useful for us, our students, and for the development of our profession. Without an abundance of grace and grace, Ya Rahim, then the knowledge we will gain shall not be beneficial. We faith your bless to the successful of our activities until it ends. Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'an wal rizqan thayyiban wa amalan mutaqabbalan. Rabbana ya sami'ud du'a. Rabbana ya taqabbal du'a. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fi akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wassalamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Iwan Setiawan MPD, for reciting the dua. Moving on to our next agenda, it is my honor to invite the chairperson of the 12th annual one-day online seminar on English language teaching 2020, who is also the head of Mulawarman University Language Center, Dr. Nur Rahmawati MED, to deliver the welcoming speech. To Dr. Nur Rahmawati MED, time is yours.
Thank you, moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, distinguished speakers, Vice Rector for Academic Affairs, participants, and committee. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 12th annual one-day online seminar on English language teaching 2020. Before we begin the seminar, allow me to express my heartfelt gratitude to the honorable speakers who kindly accepted the invitation and would share their thoughts and expertise in this online seminar. We are very grateful to Vice Rector for Academic Affairs for the tremendous support he has provided for this event by becoming the host for this event. I would also extend my sincere thanks to the committee, moderators, MC, who have worked hard to make the seminar possible. We all agree that COVID-19 pandemic has affected educational system worldwide, leading to near total closures of schools, universities, and colleges. Most governments around the world have temporarily closed educational institutions in an attempt to contain the spread of COVID-19. Therefore, government recommended the use of distance learning and open educational application and also platforms that schools and teachers can use to reach learners and limit the disruption of education. In an attempt to support the government's program, the Language Center of Mullah Warman University initiated an online seminar which focused on an important skill for our generation, that is reading. The importance of reading as language skill can never be underestimated. It is one of the essential means through which information can be obtained, especially for educational purposes. Reading serves as one of the most commonly utilized language proficiency skills across the globe. In addition, lack of reading ability results in poor academic performance among students. Students may also face various challenges outside the academic environment due to reading deficiency. Therefore, it is gratifying to note that the agenda of the seminar covers a wide range of very interesting items relating to empowering students' literacy through extensive and intensive reading activities in 21st century classroom. I sincerely hope you will enjoy today's event and make the best out of it. Thank you for your participation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. To officially open this online seminar, I would like to invite the representative of the Rector of Mullah Warman University, the first Vice Rector, Professor Dr. Mustafa Agung Sarjono, to deliver an opening remark. Now, I will give the floor to Professor Dr. Mustafa Agung Sarjono.
Thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Selamat pagi. Honorables, Head of the Center of Language, Mullah Warman University, the speakers, Dr. Rob Waring from Notre Dame Sison University, Fukuyama, Japan. Good morning, Dr. Waring. Ohayo gozaimasu. Dr. Yosefa Aryani Iswandari, Master of Education from Sanata Dharma University, Yogyakarta. Dr. Maria Theodora Ping, or Ibu Lola, from Mullah Warman University, Samarinda. Guten Morgen. Dr. Ardian Wahyu Setiawan, MED, from State Polytechnic of Malang. Dr. Diah Sunggingwati from Mullah Warman University, and last but not least, the committee and also all moderators of this event, Ibu Chris Asanti and Ibu Samdianita. Alhamdulillah, it is indeed a very great pleasure for the Mullah Warman University for having the presence of all of you in this very important one-day seminar, and therefore, in the first occasion, I would like to express my high appreciation to the head of the Center, Language Center, and all of the staff for carrying out this very important seminar. And before continuing my speech, allow me to extend an apology from the Rector of Mullah Warman University, Professor Dr. Mas Jaya, because of another activity. He asked me as a Vice Rector for the Academic Affairs to represent him and to give official speech for this opening ceremony. But he sent very warm regards to all of you, to all participants of the event, and hope that this seminar will be successfully carried out. Participants, ladies and gentlemen, in Indonesia, English is considered the most important foreign language. This is because English is critical for successful participation in the global economy, provides individuals with access to crucial knowledge, skill, and employment opportunities, and also enables organizations to create and sustain international links. Therefore, English has a more special status among other foreign languages in Indonesia. For English language learners, the ability to read English text becomes essential. Although the language is not used widely by most of Indonesian people on a day-to-day basis, those who have the skills to read in English will get many advantages, such as gaining more knowledge, giving satisfaction, and improving the language skills. Ladies and gentlemen, in the 21st century, reading is the most critical skill, since it is needed for mastering critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and communication. What we call it as the 4C of the 21st century skills. In this era, the nature of how people read has changed. As what already said by the head of the center, now people do a great deal of reading on digital media like computer and smartphones. It brings consequences that the way teachers teach reading in the 21st century should change. The need to change is getting more real during the COVID-19 pandemic, as almost all educational activities are done online. The Language Center of Malaraman University has chosen the right topic or theme for the seminar, addressing the issue of students' literacy in the 21st century. Therefore, I hope that from this seminar, great ideas, innovations, and the best practices can be shared. Therefore, once again, allow me to, on behalf of the Malaraman University, to thank to the head and staff and also the committee from the Center of Language. Last but not least, we would like also to thank to all speakers who have spent hours of your time for sharing your expertise and experiences related to the theme of the seminars to all participants. Ladies and gentlemen, for not taking your time any longer, allow me, on behalf of the Rector of Malaraman University, to open this seminar by saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I declare this one-day seminar with the theme Empowering Students' Literacy through Extensive and Intensive Reading Activities in the 21st Century Classroom. In Samarinda, August 23rd, 2020 is officially opened. Have a useful and fruitful seminar. Thank you very much. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for Professor Dr. Mustafa Agung Sarjono to officially open this online seminar. Now we proceed to our main event. I would like to inform you that there will be a door prize in every session. So please participate actively in the question and answer session and wish you a good luck. Now I will give a chance to Ms. Chris Asanti MED to lead the first session with the sub-theme Extensive Reading for EFL Learners. So for Ms. Chris Asanti, time is yours.
Hello, good morning. It's a very great morning today, and good evening for Ibu Sefa, because we have 12 hours of time difference. So I would like to also welcome you in this 12 online seminar. Thank you very much for giving me the time, Pak Eko, and then a very good morning as well to the honorable speakers and the chairperson of this 12th annual one-day online seminar, who is also the head of Mula Warman University Language Center, Dr. Nur Rahmawati MED, and the first Vice Rector of Mula Warman University, Bapak Mustafa Agung Sarjono, and all the participants who have joined this online seminar through Zoom meeting and YouTube channel. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Chris Asanti, and I'm going to be the moderator today. I feel honored to welcome you all on today's online seminar. And today we are going to have discussion under the big theme, Empowering Students' Literacy through Extensive and Intensive Reading Activities in the 21st Century Classroom. This seminar is divided into two rounds. The first round is the presentation from the invited speakers. We will have 3 wonderful speakers today. And in this round, each speaker will be given 30 minutes to present their ideas. And the second round is Q&A session. In this round, there will be door prizes given to 3 lucky participants. So please pay attention carefully. And then Now we shall begin the first round. Our first speaker is Dr. Rob Waring. Pak Rob, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, okay. So Dr. Rob Waring is a professor at Notre Dame Seishin University in Okayama, Japan. He is an acknowledged expert in extensive reading and vocabulary acquisition. He has published over 80 articles and has given hundreds of lectures, plenaries, and featured speaker presentations in 32 countries. He is an Executive Board member of the Extensive Reading Foundation, or ERF, responsible for the promotion of extensive reading globally. He is also author and senior editor of 6 series of graded readers by various publishers. And Pak Rob, I will let you know by the time of the presentation is over in 5 minutes. So,
Okay.
Pak Rob, the time is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the time now is just about 10 past 10. So I have 30 minutes from now. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you can see that. If you can, thumbs up. Can you see my screen okay? Okay, great. Let me just start my tool. Okay, so good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming along today. I'm going to be talking about extensive reading, and I'm part of the Extensive Reading Foundation. And also I'm helping the Indonesian Extensive Reading Association, which we will hear about later from Yuseva. The title today is Why We Should All Be Doing Extensive Reading with No Exceptions. And I'm going to put forward to you today the case why extensive reading should be the center of language learning and language teaching. I'm part of the Extensive Reading Foundation, and this is the website, so I encourage you to go there sometime. It has lots and lots of resources, and it has, for example, guidebooks, articles on extensive reading, bibliography, we have a YouTube channel, many other different things. We have a Facebook page, and we have affiliate organizations. So we have IERA in Indonesia, and next year in Indonesia, in Yogyakarta, we're going to hold a World Congress on Extensive Reading, where we hope to have several hundred people come from all over the world to talk about extensive reading. Another thing that the Extensive Reading Foundation has is a guide to extensive reading, which is in English and also in Bahasa Indonesia. If you want to, please make sure that you go to this website, download the guide. Many of the things I say today will be in there. It's a guide to what is extensive reading, why do we do it, how do we set up a program, how do we organize it, and what kind of activities can we do. So a lot of information is here, so this will be your homework. Okay, so I'm going to share these slides with you later. So do not worry about writing everything down. I'll give you a QR code later, which you can share and take home with you. So what is extensive reading? Let's look at this first. This is extensive reading. This is extensive reading. Isn't that a beautiful picture? Don't you love that? This is extensive reading. This is extensive reading. This is extensive reading where everybody's listening together. And this is extensive reading. So why is it that many people are not doing extensive reading? Well, first, they don't know what it is. They don't know what materials are available. They don't know how to assess the reading, and they don't know how to choose materials correctly. Or there's no space in the curriculum, there's nobody to ask, and there are no resources to do so. So today we're going to look at some of these and give you some answers and give you some reasons why you should be doing extensive reading. So we're going to first look at this case for why extensive reading is so important, why everybody should be doing it. So the first thing we're going to do is to look at how is reading typically taught in Asia, not just Indonesia, but in Asia in general. And it's typically with some kind of a textbook. This is an example of a textbook. Maybe your textbook is not exactly the same, but it will be probably very similar. Your textbook will have a short text, maybe 300 or 400 words. It will probably have some difficult words like the word here, noon, and spins and seconds and so on. And that's great. We're trying to teach them. Also, there might be some definitions or maybe even some translations. Following it, there will probably be some exercises, maybe a grammar exercises or vocabulary exercise or word in context exercise, and so on. Some fill in the blanks and so on. And these different exercises here are to help the students know if they've learned it and help the teacher understand if the students know what's being taught. Now, this is perfectly fine. And when students are typically taught to read in a foreign language, they are taught from textbooks with short, difficult texts. Often, reading involves practicing maybe phonics, the grammar and vocabulary. All the students read the same book, the same textbook that the teacher has selected. The teacher selected it, not the students. They all read at the same speed because the teacher says, let's go to the next page, let's go to the next page, let's go to the next page. And everybody reads at the same difficulty level because they all share the same book. So the students who are a high level may find a book which is too easy. Students at the low level may find it too difficult. Now, in every textbook, some units are going to be interesting to some people and some are not going to be interesting. So hopefully the textbook's going to have interesting topics all the way through, but that's not always the case. Because the reading is slow, it's hard to develop reading speed. And we call this intensive reading, intensive. The reason we say in is because we're looking inside the text, at the grammar, at the vocabulary, at the reading skills, and so on and so on. Another way to say is study reading. This is a perfectly good thing to do. We should be doing this. Absolutely important that we do this. However, this is not the only type of reading. If we look at a typical syllabus that students have, it looks something like this. They have different units that go like this. In the first unit, maybe they have the be verb and some simple adjectives. The second one, maybe some simple present, some daily routines, and so on and so on. You can see the units here. Your book may not be exactly like that, but it probably has this structure. And I call it one-hit teaching. Why is that? Because everything goes in one direction. It goes from unit 1 to unit 5, but there are some assumptions behind this. Because each unit has something new, the vocabulary and grammar and so on are not repeated in later units. So these daily routines, for example, of get up, clean your teeth, put on your clothes, go to school, and so on, these words are probably not going to come again later in unit 8 in a unit about travel or about technology. These sporting words will not come again later in a unit about health. So this is one-hit teaching. The assumption here, the theory behind this approach is we have done that, we've taught the be verb, therefore they have learned it, mastered it perfectly, so we can move to the next unit. That's the basic idea. It's basically saying teaching causes learning. We move from here to there, we teach it one time, they've learned it perfectly, we don't need to meet it again. And that is the structure of a lot of our syllabuses. And you know, and I know that there's a big problem with that, that if students are not meeting language again, it's going to be a problem. Another part to this design is that many teachers and many students think of English learning like building a wall. So for example, they think of building a wall with each brick in the wall. So for example, they'll start by learning a word like book, and then maybe they learn the be verb. These are some bricks for their wall. And they keep adding words. Their job, they believe, as a teacher, as a student, is to keep adding more and more pieces, just keep building more and more pieces until eventually they have the wall. This is the basic theory that we have from many teachers and many students, to collect English, like collecting stamps. But there's a problem here. There's nothing wrong with collecting this information, but the problem is that when the students need to communicate, the wall falls down. They can't communicate because they don't know how the words and the grammar go together. What's missing from our wall is the cement. The thing that holds all of this together is the cement, that is extensive reading. So students need to learn how words go together. We say blonde hair. We don't say yellow hair. We say blonde hair. We say yellow car. We say get out of a car. We don't say get out car. We say get out of a car. We say go by bus, not go in bus, go at bus, go for bus. No. We say need to buy a book, not need buying. So students need to know all of these connections and how are these things connected. So part of our jobs as teachers is to make sure students get these connections. If we have a one-hit design, students will not see these connections because they will not meet these words again and again in different contexts. But what happens to this individually learned piece of knowledge? What happens to it? So over time, what happens to things we learn is if at day one, we have, say, 20 or 30 new words today, and over time, what's going to happen to it? Ask yourself, if you teach your students 20 new words today, how many of those words will the students know tomorrow? Probably it looks something like this. Probably they will lose 50% of that knowledge by tomorrow. They'll lose about 70% of that knowledge by next week. And by the end of the month, probably they remember 10%. This is very typical. This is the strongest finding in educational psychology, and we call this forgetting curve. However, the problem we have is if we go back to our unit and our structure, what's going to happen to this? Well, it's going to be forgotten, of course. So by the time we get to the end of our course, many students feel, oh my gosh, I don't understand this. I don't really know what's going on. And the reason is that they met it just one time, and therefore they cannot master this. They haven't built enough experience with the language so that it will be mastered for the long term. So what needs to happen is we need to look at the different stages of learning. When we first learn something, this is our textbook or say word learning. This is the first time we learn something, but over time it's going to be forgotten. So we need to meet it again and review it so that it will be consistently remembered. And this is what extensive reading does. The textbook will give you the first learning of something, and the extensive reading gives you the deeper aspects of learning. So what happens is we have books that we need to make sure their students read at various difficulty levels. So these parts of the textbook should be met with are introducing the language, and they will be met in, say, level 1 materials. The language, this language is met in these books, but only this language, not this language, not this language, not this language, only this. The idea is to strengthen this knowledge and make it deep and so the students understand it very, very well. The second level of material would then be having this grammar and vocabulary plus this grammar and vocabulary. So systematically building on previous knowledge. And then also level 3, we would have new language plus all the previous language. Notice that there's a systematic growth in the way that language is presented. It's not random. It is consistently building on previous knowledge. And we do this through graded readers, which I'll be talking about later. So we need to understand there are 3 different levels of reading. If comprehension is low and the speed is low, we have slow intentional reading with high effort, frequent loss of comprehension, and it's demotivating. If comprehension is higher and the speed is higher, it is still slow. We have many pauses, maybe some loss of comprehension, and students need a dictionary. When students read quickly and fluently with few pauses, high comprehension, and they understand the story and they're lost in the flow of the language, this is where students need to be reading. The first part here we call reading pain. This is too difficult for the students. They can't learn much. This is our study reading. This is the instructional level of reading with the course books that I mentioned before. Extensive reading is this one, where students are mastering the language and doing their best. So what are you doing in your reading class? For pre-extensive reading, this is before students read, they would be maybe doing phonics or the alphabet, working on vocabulary building, flashcards, and spelling. And maybe they're using a textbook, reading skills with some exercises, comprehension questions. This is all building a linguistic foundation. All of this is great stuff to do to build a linguistic foundation. This is study reading and extensive reading, and it's about language instruction. For extensive reading, what's your job as a teacher? Your job is not to teach anything, but your job is to manage a library of reading materials. You're monitoring their reading, you're following up after the reading, and you're watching them read. So your role as a teacher changes. You're no longer just reading, just teaching at the blackboard. That's what you do here. You're not teaching with a textbook. Your job as an extensive reading teacher is to watch the students learn, to help them and to guide them with their learning. So for study reading or intensive reading, you're using textbooks, worksheets, tests. It's done as a class. Everybody's got the same material. There's these types of things I mentioned before. Now notice the difference between the top and the bottom. Down the bottom here, there's a difference between learning to read with reading to learn. So here the students are reading. They're choosing their own books. Their focus is fluency, speed, comprehension, and natural reading practice at their level. Notice one more important difference. How do you know if the students are learning to read or whether they're reading to learn? Well, the easy answer is look in their hand. Here you can see they have a pen in their hand. If there's a pen in their hand, they're probably studying. If they have a book in their hand, they're probably reading. And that's the big difference between the two. So why must everybody be doing extensive reading? Well, it provides massive fluent reading practice. It recycles the important and useful words and grammar time and time again to build long-term acquisition. It strengthens partly known language. Remember, the textbook is introducing it. And the idea here is that the reading will help deepen that knowledge. We want to build reading speed so students can read automatically. We also want to be depth of knowledge, the connections between the grammar, the connections between words. Students need to learn why we say blonde hair. We don't say yellow hair. We can't teach them all of this. The students need to pick this up. And we want it to be enjoyable so that they will continue to read. So for extensive reading, which material should we use? Should we use storybooks or textbooks with exercises? Well, of course, we use storybooks. And there's lots and lots of different types of storybooks that we can use, and I'll show you some later. Should the reading be easy or difficult? Well, it should be easy. The reason it should be easy is we're building reading speed. We want students to read quickly, so they read a lot. Should the students be reading quickly or slowly? They should be reading fast and enjoyably. And I just love this picture, don't you? It's great. They should be reading fast and enjoyably. That's what we're doing. Slow and careful reading is study reading. That's okay, but they should not only be doing that. Could students use a dictionary? Well, sometimes is okay, but not too many times. Maybe one time on a page, 2 times on a page is maybe getting too much because they're starting to read too slowly. So they should be hopefully reading without a dictionary, but understanding. Should students be reading to study vocabulary and grammar or reading for fun? Well, they should be doing reading practice. Yeah, we have this distinction between these two different things. So study is like going to driving school. When you go to driving school, you have a rule book, you have a rules of the road, you have a teacher, you have a guide next to you helping you to learn to drive. But being a good driver is practicing on the road. You're actually on the road negotiating the traffic. So we need to have both of those things. So what do students do in an extensive reading class? Well, there's three basic stages. First, the students choose something to read, then they read it, and then they share their reading in many different ways. Later, we will hear about some extensive reading activities that the students can do. So as a teacher, one of the great things about extensive reading is that once you have set up the extensive reading program, then there's not a lot to do. And my joke sometimes is that if you're a lazy teacher, extensive reading is your best friend. Because once you've set up the library, there's not really a lot to do except just monitor. There's certainly no lesson plans to make. There's very little marking to do. And so it makes your job as an extensive reading teacher is different from an intensive reading teacher. So your job as a teacher of extensive reading is to check they understand why they need to read extensively. That's your first job. You need to check the students are reading at the right level. So you need to monitor them and watch them and check that they're doing at the right level. We'll talk about the right level later. You need to check they're understanding the books. Make sure they do actually understand it. Make sure they're doing enough reading. We'll talk about how much reading to do later. They can select the appropriate books at their level, and they can monitor their reading. They can self-monitor. We also need to make sure the students will let you know if they face troubles, and you need to check they are actually reading something and not just faking it. And your job is to motivate them to keep reading. So those are your jobs as a reading teacher, extensive reading teacher. So how much reading should they be doing? Well, for beginners should be about an hour a week at their ability level, about an hour a week at their ability level. Why is this? Because this is a balance of, as teachers, we need to balance how much new language they get versus how much old language they're forgetting. So we know from research that about an hour a week of reading at their ability level will be a nice balance. For beginners, it's an hour a week. For intermediates, about an hour a week. But for advanced learners, they need 2 to 3 hours a week because they already know so much language, they need to read more to find things that they don't know. So how much reading should be done? And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but let's just look carefully. This is the minimum amounts. So if your students are, for example, an elementary, you want to get them from elementary to intermediate, they need to read about 169,000 words to be able to get from here to there. From intermediate to post-advanced, they need to read 1.9 million words. And that involves how many books? So this involves 52 books, and will take them about 22 hours if they're reading. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is recorded. You can download the slides later. Please look at this table. You want to find out how I know these numbers? They come from an analysis of language, corpus analysis. So let's now look at how to build an extensive reading program. Well, our aim is to make sure the students are not reading something too difficult. If they don't read well, they don't understand, they'll read slowly, they won't enjoy the reading, and they don't read much. What we want to have is students understanding better, they read faster, so they enjoy the reading, and therefore they read more. So we need to make sure the students are reading at the right level. We have to make sure the students read so they can R-E-A-D, read something quickly and enjoyably with adequate comprehension so they don't need a dictionary. If the answer to this is yes, they're doing extensive reading. If not, we would call that study reading. So your job as a teacher is to help them to understand this. But we need to understand about the types of materials. At the lower level, students will be doing these types of materials, And as they go through their career of English, they will eventually get up to open choice native books. And let's look at a few of these. The first type we call decodable readers or phonics readers, and these are trying to master patterns. So we see here a pattern. So open the box, said the fox, put it in the taxi. So here, this type of reading is practicing the x sound. So like here, my name is Kate, I hate to be late, need to race the first base. So this is the silent E, this is what it's practicing. The second type are leveled readers, which are building patterns. And these are in a series. So for example, they are in mud, they are in shoes, they are in leaves, they are in. So this is repeated pattern type books. The next type of books are native materials written for native children, and they look like this. I'm sure you're familiar with it. If you go to the bookstore, that's what the students will see. Now, are these books suitable for students? Well, children's books for natives are often full of difficult words and phrases and concepts. There's also an assumption that children already know 3,000 or 4,000 words and lots of grammar before they start to read, which is a problem because in EFL, students don't know 3,000 or 4,000 words. For natives, they already know this and they're just adding a spelling to something they already know. So the task is very, very different. Most EFL students do not have thousands of words and no grammar before to start English, so they need different materials, and we call them graded readers. These are books written for foreign language learners, and they come from various publishers, and they're based on headwords, and you're familiar with beginner intermediate, A1, A2, B1, and so on. And let's just look at a few of these. So these are just some examples. You can see their original stories. We have famous stories from the past, Little Prince, Rapunzel, Romeo and Juliet. Very, very low-level readers for children. We have other materials, which is non-fiction material. And we sometimes have comics as well. Typically, in these books, they pre-teach some vocabulary. We then read the story. So very, very simple sentences. There's sometimes text at the back you can find, and maybe a story or a story review. And sometimes there's a CD that comes with it as well. So graded readers are graded from the phonics level. Oh, I'm sorry about this. And the idea is the students master this level. They read lots of books at this level, they move up. Lots of books at this level, they move up. Lots of books at this level. The idea is to build up until they get to the higher levels of reading. So systematically building on previous knowledge. As I mentioned before, this is what
Hello, Pak Rob.
Yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt your presentation, but you have 5 minutes left.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So let's look at some of this material. The very easy books, as you can see, have very few words, very basic vocabulary, very regular spelling. The next level has slightly longer sentence, maybe has some spoken language in there, and they're slightly longer books. The next level up, we can now deal with paragraphs, longer, fewer pictures, more irregular language, and more words in the books. The next level up, very few pictures, much more academic type texts, harder topics, and so on. And the advanced level, no pictures, much longer books, much more complex plots, and so on. And you can see how the reading material gets more and more difficult. So you need to build a library. So a library might look something like this. You need a place for the students to get their books and a nice place for them to read. You might want to have CD players. You might want to have book displays and students' records, and you can display the books on your wall, something like this. And you might want to make book displays like that. If you don't have space for a library, you can maybe put the books in a suitcase and carry them around, or maybe move the books from class to class using some kind of a trolley. This is very useful because you can lock the books up and nobody will be stealing them. So take a suitcase to and from the class. But don't please do it like this, where all the books, it's very difficult for students to know what to get here. All the books You can only see the spine. It's very unattractive. So what you need to do is to make sure the students know what levels the books are by putting color codes on them. The easy books would have, say, brown. The next level will be yellow. And you put tape on each book to show the level from easy to difficult. Tell the students what the levels are, the brown level, the blue level, and so on. Tell the students the levels, and then show them in the library where the easy books are. Make sure that you are orientating your students. This is what we do in my library. So here we have the beginner books all the way to the other level. You can see pink, green, and so on. So the students know exactly where they are. They know I'm a blue level, so they go to this part of the library. So make sure that you're systematically doing that. If you have some special books like a class set, you can mark them all with red. And some of the very, very good books, you can mark maybe with a yellow, a gold sticker to show that it's a recommended book. The students like it. And if you want to, you can put the audio material into packets like this to keep it and manage it easily. So how do you integrate it? First thing you need to do is to make sure the reading room complements the school department goals and objectives. That's the first thing. Talk with the other teachers and see how you can build this in. Make sure everybody's involved, the other teachers, make sure the library's involved so that everybody knows what's happening. Start small and think big. Now, Professor Yuseva will later talk a little bit more about how to implement this. Make sure that you've got funding and so on. So you need to understand your program by making sure you need to ask yourself these questions. This is, I think, my second last slide. You need to ask yourself, how much time does the curriculum allow? Is it going to be, how flexible is your course, your curriculum? How much time can you give them for homework? Do you want to make a new course? Are you going to add an existing one? Do you have suitable materials? Do you have a budget? Do you have the staff to do this? Will the library be okay? Are you going to use class bags? How are you going to manage the materials? What borrowing systems do you need? A lot of these answers are in the guide to extensive reading I mentioned before. And lastly, how are you going to assess? Are you going to assess it, yes or no? And so on, yeah? So the point I'm trying to make now is that extensive reading should be required. It should not be optional. If it's optional, the students will opt out. And if it's optional, the message is it's not important. What I've just tried to explain to you, that extensive reading is vitally important. It's the center, it's the glue that holds things together. And also, if it's optional, the staff and administration also don't see it as valuable and may cut or defund what you're doing. Requiring extensive reading means that it is valuable and important. And then the students know they're going to be assessed. So maybe it's part of their grade and they see the reading as natural and normal part of language learning. So that's all I've got to say today. If you have any questions, could you please put them into the chat room and we'll try to answer some of the questions later in the QR session. Can I remind you, please, that we have a guide to extensive reading. Please check that out and make sure that you study more about this. So thank you very much for your time. I'll stop my sharing now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pak Rob, for your very insightful ideas as well as the reasons why we should all be doing extensive reading with no exceptions and doubts, I think. And it is not an option, but it is a required reading approach in every class. And then because we have already got some ideas of what is actually ER and then how to do it and some useful activities which can be implemented based on our setting. Thank you so much, Pak Rob. And now we're moving to the second presenter or second speaker. We have Ibu Yuseva here. Ibu Yuseva, can you hear my voice?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah, and are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay,
good. Can I share my screen now?
Yes, of course. But then
okay.
Before that, let me read your short bio first to introduce you to all the participants here. So The next presenter or the second speaker for today is Ibu Yusefa. Ibu Yusefa Aryani is one dari MED, is a lecturer in the English Language Education study program at Sanata Dharma University, Yogyakarta. She graduated from Sanata and continued her master degree program at Arizona State University under Fulbright program. She is currently pursuing her doctoral degree in foreign second multilingual language education at the Ohio State University under Dikti-funded Fulbright program. She was also the co-founder of the Indonesian Extensive Reading Association, or IERA, and also one of the executive board members of the Extensive Reading Foundation. Her research interests are teacher professional development, literacy, and extensive reading. Ibu Yusefa, you have 30 minutes to deliver your ideas, and I will also let you know when the time of the presentation is almost due. Ibu Yusefa, time is yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Santi. Good morning, Bapak, Ibu, and everyone. Thank you so much for joining this seminar. And thank you, Mula Warman University Language Center, Ibu Nur Rahmawati, and also Ibu Maria Pink for inviting me. Okay, my session is about extensive reading implementation in Indonesian setting. I'm Yusefa from Universitas Sanata Dharma. Oh, by the way, I'm Yusefa, not yet doctor, not yet professor. Okay, so just Yusefa. Okay, it's a very nice title, Pak Rob, and actually the words "no exception." Those words actually were convincing. For me. That's why that is one of the reason I then also implemented extensive reading. No exception, very powerful, Pak Rob. Okay, so these are what I'm going to share today. First, what IERA is. There is a request from Ms. Maria for me to talk and introduce a little bit about IERA, and then ER implementation in Indonesian classroom setting, and some practical tips on extensive reading implementation. So what is IERA? IERA stands for the Indonesian Extensive Reading Association, and it is one of the Extensive Reading Foundation affiliates. It was established in October 2016 with the help of Dr. Willy Renandia from Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Ibu Christina Laksmita and I helped with the establishment, and the MOU was signed by Dr. Rob Waring, the guy is here, and Dr. Auda, the Vice Rector of Universitas Sanata Dharma. If you want to know more about Extensive Reading Foundation, you can visit the websites, erfoundation.org. So basically, the main purpose of IERA is to introduce the concept of English extensive reading and promote it to English teachers and students at universities and schools. So yes, our main focus is on English reading materials. And there are three main activities that IERA has been conducted. The first one is create a place for sharing and discussion through Facebook group and regular ER workshops, ER roadshows, webinars, and activities. And the second one is help schools set up ER program and provide information on reading resources. And the third one is conducting research on the implementation of extensive reading in Indonesia. If you want to know more about the Indonesian Extensive Reading Association, you can go to the official website or IERA Facebook group. Just join the Facebook group and you will find a lot of useful discussions there. Or you can also contact the IERA chair, Ibu Fenty Siregar of Universitas Maranatha Bandung, and I think she is here with us today too. Okay, what about extensive reading implementation in Indonesian classroom setting? While listening to Pak Rob's presentation, I went to the chats and there are so many questions actually related to how to implement extensive reading and then how to actually integrate extensive reading into our reading class, which is intensive reading. Okay, so I think Pak Rob has already mentioned before that extensive reading, no exception, can be done actually, or has to be done. Yeah, I think we can implement extensive reading both in the university level and also school levels. So in the university level, some English study programs, they are very fortunate because they have a very specific extensive reading course or class. But some who are not really fortunate, actually they can still implement extensive reading in their regular English classes. For example, reading class, writing, listening, speaking, even in grammar class and also vocabulary class. Or in other reading activities outside of the classroom, let's say book club, reading group, and so on. And in school level, actually, similar to university level, you can also implement extensive reading in your English class or through Gerakan Literasi Sekolah, the 15-minute reading before class. I think Gerakan Literasi Sekolah is a very excellent program for from the government. And also other reading activities, book club, reading group, and so on. Later, I'm going to give you some examples on how to do it. Okay, this is my own extensive reading implementation in the university level. So since my study program doesn't really have a very specific extensive reading class, I implement extensive reading in my reading class. So basically, I make extensive reading and intensive reading hand in hand, okay? So my reading class is actually intensive reading, where I have to teach reading strategies, provide reading materials for students, and the activities are more related to reading materials that I choose, and they answer comprehension questions. So I try to provide time for extensive reading, since I believe that, as Pak Rob also has mentioned before, that extensive reading practice helps their intensive reading too. So what I do is that I implement extensive reading before or after, or also I integrate extensive reading into my intensive reading session. So for example, here I give you some examples. So I assign them to bring books to the class. So before the class, the students have to choose one book and then bring the books to the classroom and then read for 30 minutes before or maybe after the intensive reading session. Or I assign them to read outside the class for 1 week, and then they bring the book to the class, and then for 30 minutes, we have the book talk or the extensive reading activities before or after the intensive reading session. Or I also integrate extensive reading into my intensive reading session. I'm going to explain later. So what I try to do in my reading class actually is the thing that I really focus or emphasize is the engagement and the involvement between the students and the books, the students and also the teacher, and the students, the teacher, and the book. What about the reading materials and resources? Several weeks ago, I went virtually to one of the universities in Kalimantan as well. And they told me that they find it difficult to find reading materials for extensive reading. Yes, I would say that I'm very lucky because my study program has graded readers donated by Extensive Reading Foundation and also some people. Graded readers, as Pak Rob has already mentioned before, are books of various genres that are specifically created for learners of foreign languages. So Call Nation also mentioned that graded readers are good for students who learn foreign languages. So to make it easy for those who are not really familiar, graded readers are like buku berjenjang, Bapak Ibu. So they are leveled. They've got level easy starter, level 1, level 2, level 3, and so on. So yes, I use graded readers with my students in reading class. I also use online resources. There are a lot of good online resources for extensive reading for graded readers, you can also later visit the websites. Yeah, so I share the links to my students, and then I let them choose the books, so they can actually go to the reading corner in my study program, or they can also choose books from the online resources, or I also let my students to bring their own collection, you know, because our students are not the same. Some actually are already good readers in a way that they actually already practice reading. They have very good home literacy culture. They read a lot with their parents, but some of them, they are not good readers yet. They haven't got any experience reading in their families. So for those who are already good readers, for those who have already practiced extensive reading in the family, I let them bring their own collection. So basically, those are the reading materials that I use with my students. And
Halo Ibu Yusefa. Ibu Yusefa.
I cannot unmute myself.
Oh yeah, okay.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, all good.
Okay, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Bapak Ibu. This is what
No,
happened if we are like.
It's okay. Yeah, the technical problem. It's okay,
Yeah.
Yusefa. You may continue.
Okay, thank you. So let me just continue. So, and also some of you in the chat room asked like, what kind of activities we can do with the students in extensive reading. Okay, I will give you some examples of activities that we can do in extensive reading implementation. So this is what I do with my students. The first one is book talk using dice. So basically it's discussing books that the students have read based on the questions on the dice. But the questions are not comprehension questions. So the questions are more related to their personal experience and connection with their life. So for example, what did you learn from the story, and then which character that you like the most, or which part of the story that you like the most, and then let them talk about the book. And basically just tell them not to be afraid of making mistake when they share the books. Don't think about the grammar, don't think about the the structure of the sentences. So just try to share and try to talk about the books. And the dice basically is very easy to make. You can make yourself or with the students, and then just write down the questions in the dice. Someone also asked, in this pandemic situation where the class is online, can we still do extensive reading? Yes, you still can do it. The book talk using dice, you can change it into making or using the spinning wheel app. So yeah, you can use the app to use for the book talk here. Okay. The second example that I do with my students is written online book talk. So my study program has LMS, and then we call it Excelsa at that time. So I use Excelsa discussion forum with my students. So basically they upload the title of the book, and then they share their experience in reading the book. They mention the title and the level, and they share the summary of the book, and then what they feel after reading the book, and so on. And the other students and me, we can respond to their posts. So basically, in this online book talk, we can share anything online, and then everybody else can respond to the sharing. And we can do it outside of the classroom, basically. So it's very flexible. And the next one is book promotion. So after the students read their book, just ask them to write down their favorite sentence or quote, and then write down the title of the book, the author, the page, and then make it in the form of a bookmark, and then give it to somebody else, give it to another student. So when the other students who receive the bookmarks, they are inspired, they are interested, they are curious about the quote, and then they can go to the book, they can read the book, and yeah, so I think it's kind of a book promotion for the other students. And also, since this is a pandemic situation, everything is online, you can actually change the bookmark idea into an online idea. So I believe that students now are very good at social media. So you can ask the students to write down their favorite sentence or parts of the story, the title of the book, the author, the page, and then take the picture of the book cover, and then post it in their social media and tag as many people as possible. So it's kind of book promotion, and the students, my students, love it very much. The next idea, you can also make connection with the author. So I also do it with my students in university level, but the one that you see on the screen here is when Iera, my friends and I, help set up program in one of the junior high schools in Yogyakarta. So first, we read Egghead. Egghead is a book written by Michael Lacy Freeman, and it's about a true story of bullying and friendship. So before having connection with the author, we try to make prediction of the story by making mind map, like with the title Egghead, what kind of prediction the students can make, like what they think about the story later, and who is Egghead, and so on. And then after that, we read the book together. And then we ask the students to write a letter to Michael. And then they actually didn't know at that time that we arranged a Skype video call with Michael. And so when they were able to get connected to Michael, they were so excited, and it was a surprise. And during the Skype video call with Michael, some students read their letter and they asked questions to Michael. And for them, that was an unforgettable moment. And after that Skype video call with Michael, many students say that they were motivated to read more. So I mean, like when you ask how to motivate the students to read, well, actually we can start doing something simple or doing something that is unforgettable for them. That is to motivate them, actually. Another thing that I also do in my class, I think someone also asked how to integrate extensive reading and intensive reading in the classroom. Yes, we can actually also integrate extensive reading and intensive reading in the classroom. So again, I use Egghead to talk about the class material. So after reading Egghead and talk about it, I ask my students to read more information about bullying from articles, newspapers, etc. Because at that time, actually, the class material was about persuasive essay, persuasive article. And then after that, the students read a persuasive article related to bullying. That was the class material. And so we talk about it, and then the students make mind mapping, and then they prepare to write an essay, a persuasive essay on bullying, and then they present it in front of the classroom. So yes, actually we can really integrate extensive reading and intensive reading in our class. So using storybooks first to get an idea for the students and to increase their interest actually, because you know sometimes stories touch the students' heart more, right? After they read a story about bullying, about someone being bullied, and then when they have to read, let's say, scientific articles, they are more motivated. Why? Because they are already touched, they are already inspired from the story. So some of the students can also put themselves in somebody's shoes. So that's why for some of my students, many of my students say that finally understanding scientific articles are not that boring and not that difficult because they already start from reading stories. And if you don't have time in your reading classes, you can have other extensive reading activities outside of the classroom. The pictures here are what my colleagues and I do in Universitas Sanata Dharma. We have book day once in a month. So we display our books along the corridor and let students stop by and then read. Or you can also have book club, book date, like some of my friends also use the term book date. So instead of spending Saturday night doing nothing or feeling so sad because of being jomblo, you can actually set up an activity with your students and then name it as a book date. So it's a date with books, yeah, or book camp. They are also possible activities to do. And some practical tips to start extensive reading based on my own practice. You can start small, okay? You can start from yourself first and then from your own class. And then I believe that later your students and other teachers will follow. So just start small. Don't think about building a very great book library first, okay? Any books that you have, you can just start it with your students. Online resources, if you haven't got any books yet in your library, let's say many libraries in Indonesia, based on the teachers sharing, they say that their libraries are very clean. Yes, clean means that there's no book, right? Okay, so start small. If you have online resources, try to use it first, okay? And then collaboration is very important. I also try to work together with my colleagues who also teach the same course, let's say reading course. So we try to work together. And the second tip is give freedom to the students and believe in them. That's what Professor Richard Day, the founding father of extensive reading, mentioned. So give freedom means that when your students choose the very easy material, just give freedom to them and believe in them. Okay, don't say that, oh, this is too easy, you're not going to learn anything. They learn. Okay, so Bapak Ibu, just trust them and then give them freedom. And it doesn't have to be graded readers. It can be like any reading materials, okay, that they have or that you have. And let them choose their own book. And the books should be easy for them, as Dr. Rob mentioned earlier. Easy means within the student's linguistic proficiency level. And then motivate them to read a lot and be flexible. So many think that extensive reading should be done in the formal class. No, actually it's very flexible because like Dr. Rob has mentioned before, that it should be, it should not be just in a very short period of time. So it should be done like regularly. So just be flexible. It can be anywhere, anytime. And modeling, yes. Pak Rob also has mentioned before that modeling is very important. Modeling means that teachers as readers, so when you ask your students to read, it means that you also have to read yourself. And try to convince them that reading is a pleasure, not a task, not a pressure, but it's a pleasure. And then modeling also means that you talk about the books you read and like. Some of you mentioned in the chat room that you yourself do not really like reading. You yourself are not readers. Will that be a problem? I would say no. I was not a reader too. It's a long story, but I started really reading when I was in my undergrad time. But that's okay. So I would suggest for those who haven't started reading, you can start reading now with your students. So just like learning by doing, read together with your students and make teacher and students become reading buddies. And that's okay, yeah. You can start reading now. And the next one is consistency and commitment. This is, I would say that this is the most important tip, I think. Because what? Because extensive reading takes time. It requires consistent implementation and commitment from both teachers and students. And the result from what we are doing may not be seen directly, so you have to be patient. So when you implement extensive reading, you cannot really see the result, or you may not expect the great result only in one semester, okay? And then consistency means that you have to really implement it, not only in one semester, but it should be, you know, regularly in every semester with the students, okay? So do not only implement in one semester and then you stop it. You have to continue, and you have to motivate the students to do extensive reading even outside of the classroom. As Pak Rob mentioned before, if you want to know more, if you are interested in starting extensive reading implementation, you can go to Extensive Reading Foundation website and then download the ER guides. We have the English version. We also have the Indonesian version, but if you want to practice your Korean, you can also download the Korean version. Thank you. Ms. Santi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, I'm here, Ibu.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to wait for the for me to actually unmute myself. And thank you so much again for using your time wisely, because actually you still have 5 minutes left, but then it's okay. So we can save that time for the second session, which is Q&A. And thank you so much, Ibu Yusefa, for introducing us slightly with ERA and some of the activities, as well as some of the tips how to start ER, especially us for the teachers who wanted or who want to begin this kind of reading approach for the students. And it is indeed, it indeed takes a village to build a reading community. Thank you so much, Ibu Yusefa. And now we're moving to the third presenter for this seminar. Ibu Lola, are you ready? Ibu Maria, I'm sorry. Are you ready? Hello, Miss Lola.
Okay, it's a little bit difficult because I cannot unmute myself.
Yeah, so we have to wait for Maami actually. Well, now let me introduce you to our lovely participants today. And our third speaker for today's seminar is Dr. Phil Maria Theodora Ping, MSc. Ibu Maria Theodora Ping obtained her Doctor of Philosophy degree from Dortmund University of Technology, Germany. She is currently a lecturer at the English Department of Mula Warman University, Samarinda, East Borneo, Indonesia, where she teaches such courses as advanced reading comprehension, second language acquisition, and research methodology. She was also the secretary of Mula Warman University Language Center from 2012 to 2019. Her main research areas are language acquisition and reading instruction, particularly dialogic reading and extensive reading. And in addition to academic-related publications, she has also written a number of travel and pop culture articles published by some local Indonesian magazines. And very recently, she has co-written a bilingual picture book with her colleague to introduce her local Bornean Dayak. Okay, Ibu Lola, time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for the lovely introduction. By the way, I co-authored the book with Miss Chris Asanti, so she was actually referring to herself. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank Mula Warman University Language Center for inviting me. It's such an upgrade because a few years back, I was one of the committee members. Now I am upgraded into the speaker, yay. And it was also such a great honor for me to be able to share the session with one of my role models for extensive reading, Dr. Rob Waring, and of course, Miss Yusefa Iswandari. She was my senior back then in Sanata Dharma University, so we're kind of family, a huge family. And we have listened to concepts and really insightful presentations, including implementation and practices of extensive reading. Well, as the last speaker, actually, I think my job is not really that difficult anymore. So what I would like to share today is rather more on a practical level, which is also touching the current situation that we are facing, namely the virtual or online mode of learning due to the pandemic. Okay, now I would like to share my screen. Okay, please give me some seconds to open my slides. Okay, I will. Okay, I have just one slide here to share. Okay, here it is. Okay, can you see my slide now? Yes, okay, I will. Okay. Yeah, so the title of my presentation today is 5 Simple Ideas for Virtual Extensive Reading Activities, What and How. Actually, in the first 2 presentation sessions, you have also heard about some of the activities. I have here one exactly similar activity or 2 as the ones that have been mentioned by Ms. Yusefa previously, but we'll see some slight differences because the context that I'm going to talk about is rather more focusing on the virtual implementation or virtual practices. Yeah, why only 5? Well, Ms. Yusefa herself has mentioned to start small, so 5 will be enough, I guess. And then these 5 activities or ideas are actually a kind of template. So you can or you may modify or adapt the ideas to create your own activities. Dr. Rob Waring has mentioned about the concept. So I do believe by now you have understood the ideas behind doing extensive reading and some of the procedures. And then you can also visit the ER Foundation website to download the guideline if you're still confused about some points. There are a lot of explanations in the guide. And then you can modify these ideas that I'm going to share today with you. All right, so let's get started. I will divide my talk into two parts. In the first part, I'm going to talk about the simple ideas, only 5. And then in the second part, I'm going to talk about how to engage your students during virtual ER activities. This time, I am recommending a particular strategy originally used for another reading activity named dialogic reading, but I have found that this set of strategies, or we call it the crowd prompt strategies, can be also used in our extensive reading activities. Yeah. Okay. So simple ideas. I think we all know what the word simple literally means, right? But I came up with an acronym actually for simple, which I think represent the principles that we should take into account whenever we would like to design our extensive reading activity in the classroom. Okay, the first S, I define it as student-centered. So extensive reading is a student-centered activity. So it focuses highly on your students. They will be the ones who read the books, yeah? Okay. And then I refers to interesting. So when we design an extensive reading activity, it should be interesting and it should use the materials which are interesting for the students, not only for us as a teacher, but for the students. I think this is one of the biggest difference between extensive reading and intensive reading. And this kind of difference is actually, I think they're going hand in hand, yeah? Okay, and then M. So when we design an extensive reading activity, it should be meaningful, of course, yet manageable. Manageable both for the teacher and for the students. Okay, you have seen the checklist for the teachers presented by Dr. Rob Waring before, and then you have seen some examples for setting the ER activity by Ms. Josefa. So now you can start thinking whether you can start a manageable extensive reading program or extensive reading activity in your own context. Then P, process-oriented. Well, we have to admit that a lot of time, most of the time, we are too much goal-oriented. We would like our students to be able to achieve this, 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 and that. But as what Ms. Josefa has mentioned before, it takes time. It is a process. So extensive reading is a process. It's not like instant result, but it will take time. So that's why we have also graded readers, just like what Dr. Rob Waring has mentioned before. It is a gradual process. So when we design our activities, we have to keep in mind that it should be process-oriented as well. L, extensive reading is reading for pleasure. So it should be leisurely, but also literacy-oriented, of course. And then E, it should be extensively engaging. Okay, in the second part, I'm going to talk about strategies to engage students. When we talk about engagement, we also talk about motivation in a way. Yeah? Okay, so these are the characteristics and the acronym that I came up with whenever I would like to design an extensive reading program or an extensive reading activity in my own class. I do hope that these principles are also useful for all of us here. Yeah. On a more serious note, so you have listened to the concepts presented by Dr. Rob Waring. There are also some more important concepts to consider whenever we would like to design our extensive reading activity. Okay, the first one is the idea of comprehensible input by Krashen. I believe that all of you are familiar with this concept already. And the principle of comprehensible output, and also the four strengths to language learning by Professor Paul Nation. So the meaning-focused input, meaning-focused output, language-focused learning, fluency development. Okay, I'm not really going to talk about theories a lot, but I just showed these concepts to help us to consider, okay, these are the things that we need to understand first in the first place before setting up our ER activity. Okay, so let me start with the first simple idea. So the target for this activity will be for younger learners. So extensive reading, just like the previous two speakers have mentioned or have stated before, this activity can be used for all levels of learners, from the beginner levels to the advanced level learners. Also in different age groups, from the younger learners up to the adult learners. So it never stops, actually. The activity that I would like to share here, the idea is for early childhood young learners and lower primary school learners. Lower primary school learners refer to the first three grades of primary school, grade 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. Okay, and the name of the activity is live extensive reading aloud, or shared reading, or dialogic reading, because we are talking about virtual situation or virtual or online learning mode. So this is one of the possible activity that you can do with your students, especially when you are teaching the younger learners. Yeah, how to do it in 3 simple steps. The first one, you have to provide a selection of books or stories, because they are younger learners. Of course, picture books like this, picture books will be suitable. But because extensive reading is also about to give the freedom for your students to choose what they would like to read, please ask them to choose. So you can set up like an online poll. So you ask your students what they would like to read by providing, say, the pictures of the covers of the books. Okay, so you upload the cover, for example, and you can let them choose which of the books or the stories that they would like to read together, yeah, in your class. And then the second step, of course, you read together in a live meeting or a session. Can be via Zoom like this, or Google Meet, or whatever web meeting platform that your school is using right now. Yeah. And then please interact with your students and involve your students during the reading session. Okay, because this is extensive reading, of course, you have to do this extensively, meaning to say frequently, not just one time, but if possible, that you can do this daily, or you can include this in your daily activity for about 15 to 20 minutes. So it won't take a lot of time. Yeah, so just like what Gerakan Literasi Sekolah has attempted to do, we provide around 15 to 20 minutes at the most for daily reading activity together, also even with your younger learners. Yeah. Okay, so here's an example. Unfortunately, this is actually not really in the framework of extensive reading, but this is just an idea that you can adapt or modify for your live reading session with younger learners. So this is Miss Chris Asanti, your moderator. Both of us did a live reading aloud session with some young learners. I would like to thank Miss Fitriana Borneo. I think she is attending the seminar. So we read to her, we were reading stories to her students. And because it's online, you could share the screen. Here, because they are younger learners, we only used the pictures. But if you would like to focus on the print as well, you may also provide the text of the storybooks here, so your students can read along. Yeah. Okay, so this is very possible to do and not too difficult to prepare. It's manageable. Okay, so that's for the younger learners. Now move on to a little bit older learners. This is a very classic activity. I believe that some of you have done this before. It's not really a new thing, but it's still relevant. Yeah. So for your older students, you might not really read aloud for them or read together with them, but you can let them to read independently. Yeah. If you take a look at the term here, sustained silent reading. Sustained silent reading is one of the, well, I can say that it's already a classic concept, but still very much useful. And it is somehow related to extensive reading practice. Yeah. So you can ask your students, starting from the upper primary school students, grade 4, 5, 6, they can already read quite well, yeah. And then your secondary school students and even your university students to do some independent reading. Well, depending on your arrangement for the online class nowadays, you may decide whether to do the reading in the class or out of the class. Yeah, so you may do in both situations as well. And then as a follow-up task or a follow-up activity, you may ask them to write a reading journal. Reading journal here is not reading journal article, but reading journal here refers to a reading log or a reading report. Yeah. So how to do it in 3 easy, simple steps. Of course, the first time you have to provide time for your students to read books or stories of their own interests. Okay, I saw a question back in the chat room about choosing the correct materials for students. Well, correct here, I think refers to suitable with their own levels. The first 2 speakers have mentioned or have stated about this level of students reading. Yeah, there's also a simple way to do it called the 5-finger rule. You can Google yourself 5-finger rule. Yeah, so to decide the level of difficulty of the reading materials, and most importantly, it's not only the appropriateness or suitability of the level, but also whether the materials are interesting or not for the students. If they choose the materials themselves, they can decide whether they are interested in the materials or not. Yeah. Okay. And then ask them to write a reading journal, and then of course provide feedback whether it is directly or indirectly. Yeah. Okay. So I borrowed this picture from one of our fellow IERA members, Dr. Pratiwi Retnaningdia. She is one of the most active literacy proponents or literacy experts as well. This is from Gerakan Literasi Nasional, if I'm not mistaken. So reading journal in Bahasa Indonesia, you can call it Jurnal Membaca Harian. So it's daily reading journal. Here you can see the definition of the reading journal and the format. Yeah, it can be in the form of a report book or a report card or a simple table. So whichever you think is suitable to be used for your students. Yeah, and then the contents, and then of course the benefits. Yeah, so here are a couple of examples of the format that you can use for your reading journal or for your reading log. Yeah, the first example is rather simple. So the student needs to write down the title of the book or of the story that they read, and then the author, the name of the author, the genre, and then their comments on the book or the story that they read. Okay, and the second format is a little bit more complex with the time spent. So if you focus on fluency or fluency development, if you focus on reading speed, then you might want to know how much time that they spent to read one book or one story, for example. Yeah. And if you have a more advanced student as well, and if it is possible, yeah, you can also add one more column here, namely the total number of words read by the students. Yeah. Well, it will be very much possible with digital format of books, PDF books, for example, or online stories, but it might be a little bit difficult for the hard copy books. Yeah, but some graded readers, if you are using graded readers with your students, some graded readers provide the total number of words as well that they use in the book or in the readers. Yeah. Okay, so you can do it like this. This is a very classic example of activity that you can use. You can modify, of course, yeah, to make it more interesting for your students. Okay, the idea number 3. This is exactly what Ms. Yusefa has showed you before. I call this the creative book report. Yeah, one of the examples of the creative book report is what we call the reader's Instagram. As you know that our students are mostly Gen Z or Gen Z, the digital natives, and social media is like their second world. They're very much engaged and they're very much into social media posts nowadays. Yeah, so why not using this trend as one of the activities for our extensive reading? Yeah. Okay, so the target learners are a bit older students because some, if not all, social media accounts require the limitation of age, so the minimum age for joining or signing up. So probably it's not really a good idea for your primary school students, but it might work very well with your secondary school students and your university students. So how to do it in 3 simple steps. Of course, the first step is always the same. You need to get them to read first, whether in the class or out of the class. Whether they read real books, what I mean by real books, hard copies or digital formats, doesn't matter. Yeah, and then ask them to write a creative report. I forgot what Ms. Yusefa called it, something like a book promotion, right? Book promotion. Okay, but I call it Reader's Instagram. Yeah, and then you can ask them to write in the captions. What they write can be in the form of short review, summary, or critics. And alternatively, this is also a very good idea. I think Ms. Chris Asanti has done this before. You can also ask them to create other types of literary works, such as short poems or poetry, or haiku, the short Japanese poetry, or a microfiction or a flash fiction. If you are on Twitter, this has been a trend for a decade already. So if you go on Twitter and you check the hashtag puisi mini or prosa mini, and a mini poetry or mini prose, you can also do it like this for your creative writing follow-up task after your students read extensively. Yeah. Okay. And as you know, one of the C's in the 4 C's of 21st century learners is creativity. So we might also want to enhance students' creativity by engaging them in this kind of activity. Yeah. Okay, and then you can ask your students to post or to share their creative reports on their social media accounts. And in addition, you can also ask the other students, or you can ask them to visit their friends' accounts to give comments or feedback, and also press like or love or thumbs up or whatever. Yeah, you can also make it to some sort of nice, fair competition to see whoever gets the most like from their classmates, for example, and then you can give a nice reward for them. Okay, so that's the third simple idea. Yeah, I took this from Instagram. So apparently some teachers have implemented this idea. So you can also start thinking about using this with your students. Yeah, I think this will be a little bit more interesting for them to do than simply writing, say, for example, a very formal reading report. Yeah, so this might be more relatable to our students nowadays. Okay, so so far idea number 2 and idea number 3 are individual activities, or they are done independently or individually by the students. But what about the group activities? Is it possible to have or to set or to design a group activity for extensive reading? Just yesterday, I attended a very insightful, interesting presentation by Dr. George Jacobs. He is also one of the experts of extensive reading. If you Google his name, then you will find his publications also together with Dr. Willy Renandia about extensive reading. He talked about cooperative learning and extensive reading, whether cooperative learning can enhance extensive reading. It's very interesting, and I think that, okay, actually we have done some of the activities related to this very issue, or related to this idea. Yeah, so let me show you what I took this one from the presentation of Dr. George Jacobs about cooperation or cooperative learning, which is also, I think, one of the characteristics of our current curriculum, right? Curriculum 2013 called collaborative learning, cooperative learning. So why cooperation or cooperative learning enhances extensive reading? At least there are 5 reasons for that. Okay, I saw a lot of, or a couple of questions about how to motivate students. One of the ways to motivate students has been mentioned by Ms. Yusefa before. That is teacher being the role model, right? But the thing is, we have a generation gap. I am one of the early batch of millennials, so I'm Gen Y still, but most of my students, if not all, they are Gen Z. Some of my colleagues are the boomers or Gen X. So we have quite a generation gap, which influences our interests, including in reading materials or reading books. Sometimes I cannot really keep up with the trends nowadays, but when they have peers, they can motivate each other. So sometimes they listen better to their friends. So, oh, A and B read this book. I should read that book as well. So, of course, teachers should also be the role model. I normally post about books or things I read on my social media accounts, and I also bring books to campus. But somehow they also look up to their own peer. So more motivation can come from their friends when they collaborate, when they cooperate with their friends. And one more thing that I noticed, these students, because they are so into pop culture and social media, so they look up to some figures from this culture. Yeah, well, nowadays, you know that,
Lola, I'm
yeah?
sorry to interrupt. You have
Yes?
5 more minutes left.
Okay, don't worry. I'm going to be very quick.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so the motivation can come from this particular aspect, yeah? And then they can give advice on what to read. When they talk about the books with their friends, they will have more comprehension, and they will also have more access to books. So if you're thinking about resources, you know, your students are quite resourceful nowadays. Yeah, just believe in them, just like Bu Josefa said. Yeah. Okay, so this is one of the activities that you can do together with your students. I call it the Readers Online Conference. Yeah, you can do it in 4 simple steps. Okay, basically this is about discussion. So the level of your students will be like the older students, yeah, secondary school students and university students. Okay, so you can do the online presentation and discussion like this. And then number 5 is what I call a book club. A book club. This is very interesting actually. And the target learners are also the older students, secondary school students, and university students. You can do it in 3 simple steps, as easy as ABC. So you assign your students into groups to read similar books or similar titles or similar authors or similar genres. Yeah, so this is a little bit different from activity number 4 for in a way that in a book club, they normally read the same thing, yeah, or from the same authors. And then you book the schedule for reading itself and the live meetings. So you can assign them into breakout rooms if you are using Zoom. And then they can converse or talk about the books or the stories that they have read. So this is also good to help with their speaking skills as well, yeah, listening and speaking skills. Okay, so the second part of my presentation, I have to be really quick because I have less than 5 minutes. Okay, but I think some of you have heard about this before. If you're following my presentations, my previous presentations, I always talked about dialogic reading. One of the strategies from dialogic reading that I would like to recommend for you to adopt for your extensive reading activities, especially in the follow-up tasks or follow-up activities, will be the crowd prompts. Yeah, prompts are basically questions to lead your students to talk or to write. Yeah, okay. There are a lot of prompts, but here I recommend the crowd prompts because it might be easier for you to remember because of the acronym. Yeah, so 5 different types of prompts, starting with a completion prompt. Fill in the blanks. Sorry, you can use this for both written and spoken formats of prompts. And then recall prompts, remember the aspect of the story or the book. Open-ended prompts, WH prompt, and distancing prompt, which is, I think, very much important. In the distancing prompt, we relate the story to the aspects of life of the students, which will trigger their background knowledge. And then this is what Ms. Josefa has mentioned before. This is where extensive reading can help with intensive reading later. Yeah. Okay, so when you use crowd prompts, you can use it, or you can use them in 3 levels of questions. I think teachers nowadays are very much familiar with HOTS questions, right? HOTS questions or the cognitive level concepts. You can also use it in your extensive reading activity, yeah? Okay, HOTS questions are in the level 3 questions. So for your younger learners, or your beginner learners, you might start easy first with the level 1 questions and level 2 questions, and gradually to the level 3 questions. Yeah. Okay, here are some useful resources. I also included Dr. Rob Waring's website here if you want, and Dr. George Jacobs' website, ER Foundation website. Ms. Josefa has mentioned about ERA's website, so you might also want to check ERA's website. Yeah, Force Strengths from Dr. Paul Nations, a lot of things there, so that can help you to better understand the concepts behind ER and how to implement the concepts into a real practice in your classroom. Yeah, and also from our government. Unfortunately, this is only available for primary school level. This is a module, a literacy module, which also include the activities that I have presented. Reading journal, independent reading, they are included in this module. Yeah, it's in Bahasa Indonesia, but you can also modify into your English class. Yeah. Okay, and don't forget the idea of extensive reading is reading for fun, reading for pleasure, not for pressure. Yeah, because when you like reading, when you're not allergic to books, then it will help you as well to read more challenging stuffs later. In the second session, you will have Pak Ardian and Budia who are talking about a more serious, difficult academic reading. But before we jump into that level, we need to get into this extensive reading level, this cement, quoting Dr. Rob Waring, the cement. You need that. You can't really ignore that. Yeah, reading is fun, definitely, and we have to make it fun. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I look forward to the question and answer session as well. And I'm now returning the floor back to Miss Chris Asanti. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibu Lola, for your simple yet meaningful ideas for virtual ER activities from lower level students to higher level students. I hope this kind of ideas will help teachers as well as students, teachers to start ER later in the future. Well, because I think that Ibu Yusefa's time is very late now. We have, just like what I mentioned before, 12 hours difference of time. So we're moving to door prizes because I'm sure that everyone loves door prize here. So all the three invited speakers, they will, each of them will deliver one question to the participants. And for you who can answer the question from the speaker, you may raise your hand and then you can answer the question. And then for you who are lucky, you will get the door prize from UPT Bahasa Mula Warman University. So I will start from Pak Rob. Pak Rob, are you ready with the question?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, good.
Okay, so what's the URL for the Guide to Extensive Reading on the Extensive Reading Foundation website? Paste it into chat. Who's first? The URL for the Extensive Reading Foundation Guide to Extensive Reading. What's the URL for the English one or Indonesian? I don't mind. Who's first? The exact link, please. Hint,
Hello, Ibu Pritantina, you can answer the question.
Okay, thank you very much for the chance, and I will try to answer. The answer is https erfoundation.org/wordpress/guides/.
That's correct. Could you please copy that and paste it into our chat window?
Okay.
Everybody will do. Okay, well done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the second one is the question from Ibu Yusefa. Mbak Amit boleh tolong can you please unmute Ibu Yusefa? Yeah, okay. Ibu Yusefa, are you ready with the question?
Yes.
Okay, good. So listen to Ibu Yusefa's question carefully.
Okay, what does ERA stand for? Easy.
Can I?
No, no, miss.
Anyone?
Roni.
Pak Roni Wijaya. Okay. Please, Pak Roni.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, of course.
Okay, well, let me guess. The answer is IERA, stands for Indonesian Extensive Reading Association.
Thank you so much, Paroni, for the answer. Then is it correct,
Congratulations.
Ibu Yusefa?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
good.
that's correct.
Yes, thank you so much. And
Thank
then now,
you.
yeah, we're moving to the third question from Ibu Lola. Ibu Lola, are you ready? Wait for Amit to unmute. Yes, yes. Wait for her.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So my question is, if you still remember the acronym that I came up with, the simple acronym, what does the letter L stand for in that acronym?
Okay. Anyone?
Fida.
Sayan? Oh, Fida? 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 Oh, yeah, Fida.
Yes, I am here.
Okay, Fida.
Yeah.
Fida, may I know what is the answer?
L.
Yeah.
L is leisurely, literacy oriented.
Is that correct, Ibu Maria? Okay, thank you so much for the answers and the door prize session. But then now I would like to read two questions for all the speakers. Hopefully that you can help the participants to get some insightful ideas from their questions and then your answers. The first one is from Zoom, from Ibu Arida. The question is, how much time will be ideal for students to do ER in a day, and how to assess their comprehension and ability when they are reading on different stories and different levels? That is the first question. Do you want to directly answer that, or may I read? Can I continue reading the second question?
Both questions, please.
Oh, okay. Let me read once again. How much time will be ideal for students to do ER in a day? How to assess their comprehension and ability when they are reading on different stories and different levels? Rob, do you want to answer the question first?
Could I share my screen for a second?
Yes, of course.
The Extensive Reading Foundation has a free website where you can register your institution and register your students for books, the graded reader books that I mentioned before. There are about 7,000. There's free online quizzes. I'm sorry, there's no reading material there. What you do is the teacher sets up an account at the mreader.org website. You give the students their ID and password. They log in, they find their book, they take a quiz, and it's time limited. There's 40 questions. Each student gets 10 different questions so that they can't cheat. And here at the end afterwards, you can download the data for all of the students. So if you're using graded readers, there's about 7,000 different quizzes that you can use for this. So this is one way that you can do this. This is mreader.org. You can sign up using the link here. So you have to contact the Extensive Reading Foundation. And that was one way that you can do this. If you want to assess lots of people. And you can just set this up at the beginning of the semester, and then they read during the semester, they take a quiz for each book, and at the end of the semester, download their data. So it's useful for assessment. So mreader.org is a free system for graded readers, not only graded readers, but some other books as well. So if you have graded readers, you can use that. If you want to use a different system, there's a system called xreading.com, xreading.com, that has about 1,000 graded readers. Unfortunately, that's a pay site. It's not that expensive. Xreading.com also has reading with quizzes as well, if you want to use graded readers.
Okay, thank you so much, Paro, for your answer. And then for Ibu Maria and Ibu Yusefa.
Okay. Oh, So Bu Yosefa wants to answer first, or? Okay, she's still muted. All right. So I think the answer has been given by Dr. Rob Waring. Formally, when you would like to assess your students, and also in one of Dr. Waring's slides, you can see the recommended duration for different levels of learners, like an hour a week or 2 to 3 hours a week. Our Gerakan Literasi Nasional recommends 15 minutes per day, which I think is very much like it's very sensible to do and feasible to do, manageable to do. And then if we would like to assess the comprehension indirectly as well, we can refer to their reading journals or reading logs, and also during their discussions in the post-reading tasks. So it depends on how we operationally define the word comprehension or the construct of comprehension. If you would like to define the comprehension formally, then you should go to the more formal form of assessment, just like what Dr. Rob Waring has showed. But if you would like to assess it informally, then you can use the reading journals or the discussion results to see whether they really understand what they have read. I think that's from me.
Okay, for Ibu Yosefa, do you have any other ideas or thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that I agree with Ms. Lola, because yeah, we need to really define first what is meant by comprehension here. Yeah, and I think Pak Rob and Ms. Lola have already mentioned that. But for me, since I integrate the extensive reading into my reading class, actually I don't really assess the extensive reading part, because my focus is on how to develop their reading enjoyment, their reading practice, and also help them to become more autonomous readers. So that my hope is that they will have positive attitudes toward reading. And I believe that those positive attitudes toward reading will help the students to be more motivated in reading, and gradually their language development will also improve. So related to the formal assessment, I focus more on the intensive reading, but the extensive reading helps them actually to really support their intensive reading. So yeah, but in terms of assessment and how much time should be spent? Well, I would say start small again. Yeah, so maybe like you don't really have to demand the students to read every day, like just to get used to reading first, and then gradually you can maybe add more minutes or hours to the students later when they think that they are already comfortable in reading. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can I just take 2 to 3 minutes to go
Yes,
through
of course. Yes,
some things? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have some extra slides to show you, and I'm going to show you them briefly. We'd have to be very careful about assessment. And so there's 2 types of assessment. One is direct, and the other was indirect. So direct assessment would be like test and worksheets. So for example, you give them a test. Maybe that comes from the publisher, maybe you've made it yourself, or maybe you want to keep a reading log of reading speed. So every day, what's their speed, and you can keep a record of their speed. Or you can keep a progress chart of what they've been reading, what level it would be, and maybe their comments. Yeah, that would be some sort of a direct assessment, or the M-Reader quizzes that I mentioned before. There's a problem with that. The problem with that is if you set a reading target of, say, 10,000 words or 2 books a week or something like that, there is always going to be some students who cheat. There will always be some. Unfortunately, if it's for assessment, students will cheat. So for example, in Vietnam, there are 3 Facebook pages where you can exchange numbers and exchange ID and pay for someone to take quizzes for you. So students will find ways to cheat. So I think the best way to avoid that in terms of making sure they've done it is to not assess the reading directly, but assess a task that happens after the reading. So for example, you could assess them maybe on a book report that they write, or a presentation that they make, on their discussion ability, on the poster that they make, or a video log. These types of things, not only do they help students bring the reading into speaking and to writing and to listening, it also shows that they can actually read it, because if they haven't read the book, they can't do this. They can't do this. And often what teachers do is they give the students stories like Romeo and Juliet or that kind of thing. And what do the students do? They don't read it. They go to the Wikipedia page, right? And they can answer the comprehensions that way, yeah? So I found that if you find that your students might be cheating on this, which they will do sometimes, then I would do informal, indirect assessment, which allows them to show their knowledge in other ways. And there's lots of different things that you can do. So I just moved past that one quickly. So the Guide to Extensive Reading has 100 activities in it at the back of the book that you can do. You can do a self-level check. The students can check their own level of their own reading. There's quick book reports that you can do. You can get them to draw pictures of the story from the book, is another thing you can do. You can get them to write a report like this, write a report and annotate some pictures from the book. They can just discuss together. They can make presentations. They can write do video book reports. So this boy, for example, I didn't enable the sound, but you can get the idea. And they can then, if you use Flipgrid, flipgrid.com, you can get them to record their book reviews and place it on Flipgrid. The teacher can see all of them. All the students can see each other's video. They can do a video report for each book. And, or you can put it onto the Indonesian. Here we have some Indonesian students doing it on YouTube. And there's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ideas that you can do to help assess the reading in informal, indirect ways.
Thank you so much for the answer. And then next question is from Sean from Zoom. This question is addressed to Pak Rob. Based on your own experiences, how long does it take for Kanji Hangul students like Koreans, Japanese, Chinese to enhance their reading skills? Do they improve lower than Roman alphabet students?
How long do we have? For Japanese students, they get alphabet quite early. And so they don't really have a problem with alphabet. And you find the same in China. So there is a difference in the way that people process language, written languages. So the Japanese, Chinese systems, as you know, and Korean have what we call logographic, that is pictures represent words. And their reading ability for also in alphabet, there's not really much difference between the two of them. But in terms of how long do they get, how long does it take to get a high level of ability? Well, that depends on how you define high level of ability. But what we do know is there's a difference in the way that students process language. If students are processing language like letter by letter by letter, they're trying to work out, you know, is this a P or a D or an F? That level is very, very slow. The next level of reading comprehension is where they're processing word by word by word. So they would process word and then the next word. And again, that's quite slow. A much better level of reading is when they're reading chunks of words together, like 2 or 3 words together, 2 or 3 words together, 2 or 3 words together. So the eye is moving more quickly. And that's a much better level of reading, the idea level of reading, because they're processing ideas. That level of idea level of reading, where they're processing at the level of ideas and not processing words, can only come when they're reading quickly. So if they're reading quickly, then that should be at least 80 or 90 words per minute. And evidence suggests that they need somewhere around 300,000 to 400,000 words for their brain to switch into the idea level of reading fast, understanding, where they can just not only think about what's happening in the text, but also think beyond the text. You know, why is the person doing this? What's going to happen next? So they need to process beyond the word by word by word level to the idea level of reading. That's really important because comprehension increases. We remember the ideas of what someone said, we remember the ideas in a book, we don't remember the words from the book. So it's very, very important students need at least 300 to 400,000 words just to get into that level of processing for reading. Beyond that, they need to do more reading, and to get to advanced level in English, students need to read at least 2 to 3 million words, at least 2 to 3 million words. And if they're reading 2 or 3 million words and reading 20 minutes a day, it's going to take them about 3 years. If they read 2 minutes a day, it will take them about 25 years. So that gives you some idea about how much they should be reading.
Thank you so much, Paro, for the answer.
The one last thing I want to say is my slides are now available for you in the chat window. If you want my slides, you can download them.
Thank you so much as well for the link you've given. And the last, I would like to say thank you for all the participants. And I feel sorry that actually I cannot read all the questions that come through the chat columns because of the limitation of the time. But I'm sure that all your questions had been answered clearly by all the speakers. And thank you so much. And before we're moving to the second session, I would like to ask Ibu Nita as the moderator for the second session. Are you here already, Ibu Nita?
Please. Saya di-unmute.
Okay, yes, Miss Chris, I'm here already.
Okay, good. So I would like to say thanks once again to all the wonderful speakers who had shared their insightful and fruitful ideas on how to actually conduct
ER, as well as how to implement ER based on our setting. Thank you so much. I will give this floor to the Master of Ceremony, Eko. Pak Eko, time is yours.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Chris Asanti, as a moderator. Okay, this is the end of our first session. We will have 5 minutes break before moving on to the next session. Thank you.
Dear participants, thank you so much for being patient. While we are waiting for 5 minutes break, let's have a photo session because as we know that Bu Yusefa's time is 12 hours different from us. So Bu Yusefa is going to leave this meeting room, and all of you please turn on your video to have the photo session together.
Ya, oke. Sudah dinyalakan semua videonya. Oke, kita tunggu sekitar 7 detik. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oke, kita coba tag yang pertama dulu ya. Oke, so 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, wait a minute. Oke, sekarang kita coba lagi. Satu lagi. Wait a minute. Okay. Let's wait. Okay. Now, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Then Miss.
Okay, thank you so much everyone for smiling. And I hope that your smile will also brighten your day while you are waiting for the second session to start. So I think that it's almost 5 minutes. So I will give it back to Pak Eko to open the second session. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, welcome back. Now we are going to the second session. Right. The sub-theme of this session is academic reading for teaching and learning and publication. This session will be delivered by two distinguished speakers. I will give the chance for Ms. Syamdianita to lead the presentation. And I also remind you that we still have door prizes. So please be active during question and answer session. To Ms. Syamdianita, time is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Mas Eko. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the second session of the 12th annual one-day seminar held by Mula Warman University Language Center. I would like to send some my gratitude to the head of Mula Warman University Language Center, the speakers, as well as the participants who have joined the seminars through Zoom meeting and YouTube channel. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Syamdianita, and I'm going to be the moderator for the second session of today's seminar. The second session's theme is academic reading for teaching and learning publication. In the session, there will be 2 rounds. The first round is the presentation from the invited speakers. There will be 2 wonderful speakers, as Mas Eko has already said. And each speaker will be given 30 minutes to present their ideas. And the second round will be question and answer session. In this round, there will be door prizes given to 2 lucky participants. Let us now begin with the first speaker. Our first speaker is Bapak Ardian Wahyu Setiawan, MED, EDD. Bapak Ardian Wahyu Setiawan is an English lecturer at English Department, State Polytechnic of Malang, and chief editor at prosemantic.com. He obtained his Bachelor of English Linguistics from Universitas Negeri Malang, Master of Education in TESOL from Monash University, Melbourne, and Doctor of Education from the University of Adelaide, South Australia. Currently, Pak Ardian is developing a systematic approach to scientific writing through systematic reading. He has delivered workshops on writing for research and academic purposes, or RAP, at various higher education institutions. Today, Pak Ardian will talk about demystifying the practice of academic reading. Pak Ardian, I will let you know by the time of the presentation is over in 5 minutes. Audience, let's welcome Pak Ardian. Pak Ardian, time is yours.
Thank you very much, Ibu Samjianita. I would like to share my screen first. Let me try this. Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. And also, thank you very much for Mulawaman University Language Center for inviting me. It's a great honor for me to be among great scholars today, Professor Rob Waring, Ibu Yusefa, Ibu Lola, and also Ibu Dia. And it's been a pleasure to watch and listen to presentations from the previous speakers. I learned a lot from the sessions, and honestly, I got so many ideas for my classroom practices. Now, Bapak Ibu, a couple of months ago, some of my students came to me with these questions. How do we know we are performing academic reading? Now, from that questions, I realized that I have to give them more practical indicators of academic reading. So today's sessions will be guided by these three questions. How do we know we are performing academic reading? And then for addressing that questions, I would like to briefly discuss definitions of reading and also definitions of academic reading. What is reading and what is academic reading? And then I would like to touch upon the issue of the benefits of academic reading. Okay. I really like this cartoon, this picture. It provides a simple definitions of reading. Reading is simply defined as how people install new software into their brains. It's very simple, right? And it's cute picture too. But however, reading is not really simple. Reading is a very complex process, an extremely complex process, and many researchers have approached these definitions of reading from various angles, and they propose various definitions of reading. And for today's sessions, I would like to borrow one definitions from Day 2013. Reading is defined as a number of interactive processes between the reader and the text, in which the readers use knowledge to build, create, and construct meaning. Now, from that definition, we can then define academic reading in terms of reading purposes. Academic reading is, we can understand academic reading as a number of interactive processes between the reader and the text, and so on, to build, create, and construct meaning with the purpose of performing particular academic task. Now, based on that definition, then we can make an assumption that it differs from other forms of reading in not only the content of what is read, but also how it is read. Okay, I would like to focus on one of these two key aspects. Okay, we have one, what is read, and of course, scientific and academic materials. And the second one is how it is read, how academic reading is done. In other words, in this session today, I would like to address the indicators of academic readings. The main questions that guide this session is, how do we know we are performing academic reading? This is the questions that often proposed by my students. What are the indicators? So the first is, academic reading is purposeful. You should ask yourself, you should ask your students to ask themselves, when you are performing academic reading, you have a purpose or a set of purposes, such as finding informations about topics, understanding theories or practices, looking for different perspectives or frameworks. And because of these purposes, you apply strategies based on these purposes. And then the second one is In academic reading, you are aware of your stance and approaches. You are critical, you are being critical, not submissive. In this case, you are not taking informations, ideas, concepts for granted, and you don't take them at face value. Rather, you make evaluations, judgment, critical judgment, and also analysis. As you are reading, you make judgment and also evaluations of ideas. The third indicator is we are performing academic reading. Academic reading is productive, not receptive. When you are performing academic reading, you are oriented to generating meanings or ideas and also questions. You produce concepts, ideas, and also you can also make beliefs and assumptions. Next, the fourth indicator of academic reading is when you are performing academic reading, you have a framework in mind. You come to the reading materials with a framework with ideas, assumptions, and also hypotheses. Therefore, you know what to look for, and you use strategies to get the information, from your reading materials. Now, for this, I develop my own strategy. I call this what to save. So every time I read, I always take notes of these points. So I take note of the title, the author, the keywords, the objectives, the methodology, the results, and argument and so recommendations. And then I save this in a specific software to help me organize and manage the information. Later on, I will show you how I manage the information so that every time I need to use the informations, I can then retrieve the informations and put that in my writing. Next, the fifth is academic reading is social. It's not isolated because you have to connect ideas and concepts from various resources in the sense that you connect yourself with others, the ideas of others. Okay. The sixth indicator of academic reading is reflections. When you are performing academic reading, you are making reflections. This requires metacognitions in which you examine your own assumptions, your own ideas, thoughts and beliefs, judgment and practices. Okay. And the last one is synthesis. Okay, I will discuss more on this after some slides in which I will show you the levels of academic reading. In academic reading, we form a theory or system of thoughts. Okay, I know this one is not easy, forming a theory or system of thoughts. Therefore, you have to organize ideas and concepts. When you read like 1, 2, 3 articles, it will be very easy for you to manage the information from those articles, but not if you, let's say you have read 10 or 20 or 50 articles, then it will be very hard for you to manage informations and ideas and concepts from those articles. And therefore, in academic reading, you need to develop a method to organize, to manage information that you obtain from your reading materials. In this case, you can use mind mapping software, you can use organizers, and also if you want to go to a more advanced level, you can use data analysis software and manage your information using those applications. So this is what I do with my reading. Every time I read something, I save these points, 8 points, and then I put this in computer applications, reading and organizing. I save the informations and for the sake of retrieving. So in the future, if I need these informations, I can easily retrieve this from the software. Okay. This might help you to work more efficiently when you are doing academic reading. So how can we measure our reading? Okay, we have talked about 7 indicators of academic reading. Okay, now how can we measure the levels of our academic reading, whether we are doing academic reading at a high level or a mid level or a low level? So we can apply this. We can use this diagram from Bloom, okay, which explains and shows the levels of writing actually. But if we can also use this for evaluating the level of our reading. Okay, if our reading is at this level, we're remembering information. That means we are at the low level of reading. Understanding, even though actually this is the basis for all of the above levels, the higher levels of reading. Okay, then we apply informations from the reading materials, levels of analysis, and evaluate. And the highest one is actually to create something. So if you perform academic reading and then you produce something from your reading materials, you're actually at the highest level of academic reading, Okay, I will address the next questions. What are the benefits of academic reading? Now, I am interested in bringing the idea of extensive reading and to consider academic reading as part of extensive reading after watching Dr. Rob presentations. Very interesting. And now this is the writing problems that we commonly face when we write. So first is I don't know what to write. And then second is I don't have any research topic. I have read so many articles, but I got lost. And then I have read many articles, but I can't remember the key points. Actually, that stems from reading. That's not writing problem, but actually reading problem, because good writers are good readers. You cannot be good writers without becoming good readers. Now, this is what I want to show you. Honestly, I just write this part after watching and listening to our previous speakers' presentations. So I put here, well, I should put academic reading as part of extensive reading. So what we can get from academic reading is at this level, we can, for example, get specific words and phrases, which means vocabulary expansion. And then we can also get sentence constructions and structures, ideas from the materials that we read. And then if we apply rhetorical reading and also analyzing the structures of how ideas are presented in articles, we can get organizations of ideas and styles, conventions, and then understanding of discourse, of course, understanding of current issues and gap. But more than that, I would like to emphasize on these four productive skills: the ability to collect and construct meanings, to produce new ideas and new concepts from the materials that we read, and then the ability to criticize, to apply critical thinking in our reading, and then the ability to synthesize and generate ideas and concepts, and higher is analytical thinking. Now, as I've mentioned before, after watching and listening to Professor Rob's and also Ibu Yusefa's and Miss Lola's presentations, I put this line here, academic reading as part of extensive reading, and I think it's very possible, but but I think academic reading should be guided. This is the activity that I can, well, I usually apply this in my classroom. So academic reading, but guided, because in academic reading, students must be guided by keywords and concepts so that they cannot, so that they don't deviate from the ideas and the concepts they have to write in their writing. And therefore, we have to give keywords and concepts. We can, for example, ask them to find articles and read the articles, but before that, we provide keywords and also concepts which are related to the concepts and also the keywords which they have to address in their writing task. Okay, so the benefits of academic writing is read more and write more, actually. If you want to write more, you have to read more. And that's the key and also the main message of my session today. I would like to close this with this quote from Steven Pinker. Good writers are avid readers. They have absorbed a vast inventory of words, idiom, constructions, tropes, and rhetorical tricks. and rhythm sensitivity to how they mesh and how they clash. This is the elusive ear of the skilled writer, the tacit sense of style which every honest style book echoing what confesses cannot be explicitly thought. Sorry. So that's my presentations today. Ibu Dianita, thank you very much for the opportunity. I should stop now.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ardian. Well, you still have time actually, but yes, let me then call Ibu Dia Sunggingwati. We will have the second speaker. Let me read first the short bio of Ibu Dia Sunggingwati, PhD. Dia Sunggingwati obtained her Doctor of Philosophy degree from University of Queensland, Brisbane, Australia. She is currently a lecturer at the English Department of Mulawarman University, Samarinda, East Borneo, Indonesia. She was the Dean Assistant of Academic Affairs, Faculty of Cultural Studies of Mulawarman University from 2005 to 2015. She was also the coordinator of English Master Program, Faculty of Teacher Training and Education, Faculty Mulawarman University from 2016 to 2020. Her current research interests are ELT and professional development. In addition, she also actively joined academic and professional trainings and workshops. Since 2009, she has participated in national and international conferences. She's also a Taflen coordinator of Kalimantan Timur from 2017 to 2021. Audience, please welcome Ibu Dia Sunggingwati. And Ibu Dia Sunggingwati, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Bu Samdianita. Can I share my screen? Okay, hang on. Bu Samdianita, can you see mine?
Yes, Ibu Dia, I can see your slide, but it's still in the form of folder.
Okay, yes, hang on.
Yes.
Slideshow. Yes. Is it clear, Ibu Samdianita?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet
Not
coming.
yet?
Maybe in 5 seconds.
It's already full slide in my computer.
Seems that, wait. But I can't see yours. Would you please try to stop sharing first and then share screen again?
Okay. And okay, I'll start again. Okay.
Yep, this one is great. Thank you, Budia.
Okay, let me from the beginning. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Still, and within 30 minutes, we are going to have 12 o'clock, and then it's noon o'clock. Okay. In this opportunity, I would like to share what I've done in my research, and in this occasion, I would like to talk about two issues about why is reading in a second language challenging and what do teachers do to deal with it. So while Pak Ardian and previous speakers talking about extensive reading and Pak Ardian more focused on academic reading, mine will be slightly much more on practical, especially for teachers. So the first part is about, I would like to review a little bit about reading in a first language, especially when reading in a first language is English. In reading a first language, we need to have at least readers' knowledge about the words. readers' knowledge about language, readers' knowledge about the background language, and also the context of the reading takes place. And about knowledge of words, perhaps like spelling, meaning, and pronunciation. Knowledge of language is about semantic regarding about meaning, and syntax is about structure, grammatical structure, and also background knowledge is about background knowledge of the readers and experience will influence the reading in first language if our first language is English, and also about the context where the reading takes place. So this is what should be acknowledged if we have reading in a first language. And while reading in a second language, we also have those components that I mentioned previously in the first language, but also reading in the second language, the readers need to develop explicit knowledge of the components, of those 4 components in a new language. So therefore, it would be much more challenging for us readers because of readers lack adequate knowledge in the language, including the grammatical structure of the differences between grammatical structure of first language and second language. So this is why makes reading is already complex, but reading in second language is much more complex. So for example, I would like to show you about the examples of Bahasa Indonesia about knowledge of the language. Like as we know, we have, for example, here in Bahasa Indonesia, we have, for example, 1 apple, 2 apple. So there is no difference between 1 apple or 2 apples. Okay, 1 apple, 1 apple, 2 apple, 2 apples. You just replace the number without the words of the apple itself. For example, also here I give it to you is about buku biru. Buku biru, jeruk manis. Sorry, I need to change this one. It's about jeruk manis, orange sweet. Actually, it should be sweet orange. And also in Bahasa Indonesia, we have the word aku, saya punya, I have, dia punya, and she has. So for example, when we read a statement in a reading, for example, kakak perempuan saya mempunyai 3 buah apel berwarna hijau. If we translate it in Bahasa Indonesia, these words into English, elder sister might have 3 fruit apple green. This will bring some difficulties for students to learn. That should be my elder sister has 3 green apples. So these differences will create more complexity in reading. Next, we also need to know about the background knowledge of and also contextual knowledge, including cultural knowledge. This is very good, not good actually, but this is very simple example that might create some problem, especially for those children or our students who are far from big cities. Like for example, the sentence, my mother made a big cake when I was 10. For those who have this cultural background knowledge, it's much easier to understand this statement, because a big cake is a big birthday cake with full of decoration and with colorful candles on it, you know. And when I was 10, it's about the celebration of my birthday when I was 10 years old. However, in Bahasa Indonesia, a cake is a similar a snack, and the day of individual's birth is not always celebrated every year. So this also create problems or much challenging for the teachers and perhaps also for the students. So next, what teachers can do with these difficulties, especially when reading in a second and more particularly in a reading in a foreign language. Here, I share what teachers can do in reading instruction because, well, of course, this is conducting when we have normal live classroom. Like in a pre-reading, we have some strategies. So for example, like previewing and predicting. Previewing can be done by examining pieces, headings, pictures of titles, which might be really relevant with the extensive reading. Predicting to activate background knowledge of the students. And then while reading, we also can do some predicting strategies, like predicting what is the main ideas of the second paragraph, for example. And also questioning to monitor students' understanding, or we can also do some strategies like visualizing, like drawing. You provide, the teachers provided drawing or pictures or mind maps. And in post-reading, we can do some strategies such as questioning and summarizing. So this is only the examples that the teachers can do in the classroom. And for further questions, so which one is better? I cite here from the experts that better reading strategies, should indicate that students have the authority to become involved in reading experiences and engage in reading. So no matter what strategies you apply, but the strategy should allow students to become autonomous, to become more involved in reading. And the instruction, of course, this one should be from the teachers. The instruction should be clear and comprehension should be explicit and systematic. And the most important one is that teachers should model how to use the strategies to the students. Next, I will be very quick, hopefully. Explicit, how to teach these strategies here. Perhaps I will address this for the teachers. The teacher should have a explicitly description of the strategies, how it should be used and how it should be implemented in the classroom. Teachers need to provide the model and demonstrate how to apply the strategies in reading. Collaboration, use of the strategy in action. Here is about both the teachers and the students use this strategy in action. And also the teachers need to have like guided practice using the strategy with gradual release of responsibility. And finally, the students use the strategy independently. So from the teacher centers into the student center. Okay, ideally it's like that, because this is what the education needs to do with this. Okay, among those strategies, and also Pa Adrian has already addressed that one thing that to be like academic in reading, we can asking the questions or generating questions. And I would like to focus here is about questioning strategies that commonly used in the classroom, and usually it is done by the teachers in the classroom. So students lack of opportunity to ask questions or to generate questions. So a little bit about questioning strategies. The benefits of questioning strategies is to guide students to think critically, analytically, and also to lead the level of understanding. And as the students in the classroom, the teachers provide the examples, so perhaps the students try to imitate teachers' questions. However, here how to teach questioning strategy is not easy, because it's also related to cognitive level. Not easy both from the teachers and from the students. Why? Because it's also because of we as the teachers and perhaps the students commonly exposed in a low level of thinking questions. What does it mean low level of thinking? Questions that require the answers of those questions do not require higher order of thinking. So this is the essence of comprehensions of a passage. This is from the experts that the essence of comprehension of a passage, I focus particularly here, the passage that used in the classroom, is asking about relevant questions and then search for the answers of the questions. Yeah, because by asking the questions that can be used to reconcile prior knowledge and develop concepts, clarify reasoning, and also lead to higher levels of thinking. And perhaps Pardian and I would use similar different level of thinking from Bloom taxonomy. I think everyone, especially for the teachers, are familiar with this level of thinking, because this is very well-known taxonomy. Just a little bit review about the differences between the old version and new version. Here is about evaluation, while the new version is about creating. Next, this is what I'd like to share next, is about students generate questions. So rather than focusing on the questions asked by the teachers in the classroom, this session I would like to show you about students generates questions, which is related what I call is about self-questioning. And self-questioning has been viewed from different angles here. It is from the cognitive perspective, it is a cognitive strategy because the students internalize the information from the texts. And also it is metacognitive strategy because the readers, especially the students, need to monitor and evaluate their cognitive activities to determine to the extent their understanding. For example, wow, which I think I've already read this before, but I don't understand. They need to get back to the previous section of their reading. So this is called metacognitive strategies. Active processes are because the students or the readers actively engage in their reading passage. And also by asking questions about the text and related about what they've understand about their reading passage is also improve awareness, part of the strategies that readers might do not understand. So this is some stages. I think this is the last section of my presentation. Stages of self-questioning strategies. This should be done based on the suggestion of the experts, should be done gradually from the teachers to the students. So the first step is that we can take the different level of question based on Bloom taxonomy. Bapak Ibu, you can find out a lot in the internet about different level of questions, but still focus on the higher level questions. Okay, you can begin the questions from the low level, but then you need to improve. Okay, so the first one is about introduction about Bloom taxonomy, from different level of question from the taxonomy, and then you also need the guided cards. Guided cards here, you write down about the keywords of those questions level, and then highlighted the keywords, and then write different level of question, and then ask different levels of questions, particularly high level ones. And just focus on this point, students need to practice in pair. Well, if it is implemented in the classroom, it already takes time because the students perhaps are not familiar with level of questions based on Bloom taxonomy, especially for the high level ones. And the second, again, the following meeting, you can say, or you need to review. And then it is followed by brainstorming of self-questioning. What is self-questioning here? Self-questioning here is the students need to generate questions from the text, what they've read, in order to comprehend the text. So you need to explain about what is self-questioning and provide opportunities for students to practice self-questioning from different level of questions in the Bloom taxonomy. And then in the stage 3 or midterm 3, that you can ask your students about reviewing about self-questioning that they've already learned in the previous meeting. And the steps 2 in the stage 3, model self-questioning. Here, the role of the teacher should be the model how to do self-questioning. And then after this, after an ample of time to have this session, so the teachers need to provide opportunities for their students to practice how to do self-questioning. And following this, you need to introduce set of questioning with guided cards. Again, this guided cards is a bridge for the students to deal with what they have already, what they have just already known, and then into the practice. Because I'm not sure that the students can immediately confidence to use the self-questioning strategies or to apply self-questioning with higher level of thinking straight away without any bridge. And so I think guided cards here will help the students to be more independent in implementation. And I think this is the last stages of self-questioning. It's about reviewing of self-questioning. Again, reviewing what have been done in the previous stages. And then model self-questioning in peer reciprocal questioning. Here, in the previous stages, stage 3, model self-questioning by the teacher. Here, the teacher need to model self-questioning in peer reciprocal questioning, meaning that they work both together in pairs. Okay, and then again, provide opportunities for students to practice peer reciprocal questioning using guide cards. Here, the students work together and then using the guide cards. So at least they can see the guide cards, even though not all the time they see the guide cards. Okay, so sometimes if they forgot, they can do it, but do not rely on the guide cards, because at the end, the students are expected to practice their peer reciprocal questioning without guide cards. And this should be done repeatedly, because at the end, the students are able to practice this strategy while they are reading with the text. I think, and finally, the students will be able to ask questions, generating questions, self-questioning about the text, and then they become more critical about what they've read. Especially when we see this self-questioning, they are able to monitor, they are able to question themselves. For example, do I need to read this? Is it important for me? Why is it important? Do I need to deal with other sources to have a look on these answers of the questions? So this is some ideas that I've shared with you. Bunita, I think I don't have many things to say about this, and I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. I get back to you, Ibu Samdianita.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Dia. Well, such an insightful presentation from the wonderful two speakers. Pak Ardian talked a lot about indicators of academic reading, reading management, as well as the benefits of academic reading. And one quotation for today, maybe you cannot be a good writer if you are not a good reader. Well, I love it that much. Well, from Ibu Dia, we've got a lot for reading in a first, the difference between reading in a first and second language, as well as the background and contextual knowledge, including cultural knowledge. And we also have how to teach our students to generate questions and the stages of self-questioning. Thank you very much, Pak Ardian dan Ibu Dia. And then now I'd like to open question and answer session before we are coming to the door prizes session. I would like to read the questions in the chat box. The first question is, it is from Ibu Sarlivi, I think. I like to read many stories in English, but when I must read it loudly in front of the class, I become blank and I cannot read comfortably like usual I read. And that's make my pronunciation become mess. Is there any mistakes from the way I'm reading? And which strategy should I use to fix it? Pak Ardian, maybe you have an opinion about it?
Yes, that's a very interesting question, Ibu. I think preparations is always a key word for this kind of case. When we want to read a storybook for children, then the first thing that we have to do is that we have to prepare ourselves. We read the book first prior to reading for our students in front of the classroom.
Okay, Bu Dia?
Yeah, I think I agree with Pak Ardian in preparation, Ibu. I think the first thing that we need to do is that before you ask your students or you instruct your students to do what they have to do, I think the teachers need to do first what they have to do. Okay, I think that's the keywords. And of course, yes, I agree with Ibu that sometimes that reading aloud in the classroom sometimes make you nervous, even in front of your students. I think you need to prepare plan A, plan B, plan C, for example, like that. Of course, perhaps you're not nervous because you are fear of your students, but we don't know what happens in situation in the classroom. Perhaps you're tired directly, or you have headache straight away. We don't know yet about that. But at least the preparation here, I think if you have problem with pronunciation, you might need to have like YouTube or a media that replace your role there, but you still be able to give instruction. But the media that you employ in the classroom, that will work for you. I think well, that's sometimes what I done in the classroom, when I feel so tired at night and then I'm not ready to teach or talk a lot. At least I need to prepare many ideas or strategies to anticipate the particular plan that might not work in particular time. I think that's my response, Ibu Samdianita. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Dia and Pak Ardian. Pak Rob also share his thought on this loud reading, on reading aloud. And then I also got a question from WA. This is what about how to connect? Well, in the first session, we have extensive reading, right? But when Pak Ardian also touched a little bit about extensive reading and academic reading. So how we can connect extensive reading in academic reading classroom? Who's first? Okay, Pak Ardian. Okay.
Bu Dia or?
Oh, you might go first. Okay. I don't mind.
Yeah. To me, academic reading, just like extensive reading, should be driven by students' motivations. We can ask students to read, give them reading materials, books, and also articles. But it would be much better if we could we could ignite their motivations to read based on what they want to find. So this would be then more productive for them. So what I did in the class, I gave them some keywords and concepts which they can use later on as a basis for finding more information about the concept and also the keywords, the ideas. And I think this activity relates to what Professor Rob Waring has explained, that students should find more informations, more reading materials at their level, based on their level.
Bu Dia?
Yeah, I think how to integrate extensive reading. Based on my experience in teaching, I think we can integrate the extensive reading into intensive reading in the classroom, particularly when you are teaching at a university or tertiary level. It should begin from the beginning of the semester. But then again, as it is, it gradually needed that students need to deal with their final project of submission of their thesis or seminar of mini thesis. So we need to straight away from perhaps from extensive reading, perhaps more portion of extensive reading into more intensive reading as into more academic writing or academic reading and academic journals. I think that is, yes, of course, in the beginning, in the first, second, or third semester, but as soon as they need to deal with something academic, because they need to submit their mini thesis, they need to deal with the academic reading, I think. And also, this should be done gradually. You need to introduce first at the beginning, even in the highest level of their students. You need to introduce this, the importance. And also, Bapak Ibu, I would like to share that as soon as what the task they need to deal with is relevant to their needs, happy or not happy, they have to do it. Okay, that's the voice from my students, because yes, I would like to share that what Pak Ardian already shared about to save. That's what I've done to my students, Pak Ardian. That's because that's very useful. But then, I know it is painful for them to deal with that. Yeah, it is painful. But as soon as they found out that it is important for their life, academic life, in making the final project of their thesis, well, they like or dislike, they have to do it and they have to deal with it. And then finally, they find out the way how to deal with this situation, including dealing about themselves, because it's something new. They need to deal about their time management, their discipline, into be able to the reading, the academic reading, especially for the journal articles for academic reading. Yeah, thank you, Bu.
Thank you. Thank you, Budia, Pak Ardian. One question from you, Pak Ardian and Budia. Well, I know that's a burden for every academicians. We need to publish something. We need to publish our writings, right? So I'm interested in reading management, what has been taught by Pak Ardian. Can you share the applications that we might use for reading and organizing our readings?
Yeah, I just realized that I have a limited space for storing informations that I got from reading. So I read lots of reading materials, articles, and books, but then every time I want to save them, I mean, it's very easy for me to remember 10 articles that I've read, but then it would be a great challenge for me to retrieve information from like 50 or 100 articles. So therefore, an important part of academic reading, which students must perform, I think readers must perform, is saving the informations, because we have to manage much information, many concepts, many ideas. And for this, I use an app called Evernote. No, I'm not. This is not, well, this is for free, free software. I also use mind mapping software. I think you can find the software easily. It's available for free. You can use mind mapping software for visualizing ideas and concepts, because for me, it is easier for me to produce ideas and perform synthesis if I can see the concepts in the form of graphics and pictures. So I use those two types of applications. One is for saving and retrieving informations, ideas and concepts that I got from the articles that I've read. And the second one is mind mapping software for visualizing the concepts, so that I can put them on one screen and then see them see the ideas and concepts and how they relate, and that way that will make make a reading more efficient, and I can easily produce something from the reading materials. I think that will help Ibu.
Thank you, Pak Ardian. Well, we have a question again for Ibu Dia from Pak Joni. I will teach essay reading next semester. My question is, how is essay reading activity different from ones usually done in the classroom?
Okay. Wow, what is essay reading activity? This is quite new, Pak Joni. What is essay? But maybe Pak Ardian, do you know about essay reading activity?
I think it's just like reading.
Essay. Or is Pak Joni, is it about reading an essay? So it is called essay reading activity, or what?
Yeah, it is maybe different term used in his office, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it is it about reading essay or because essay text passage, I think, well, in my opinion, it's quite similar one to another, just only about perhaps the structure, but basically it's quite similar, like reading activity for essay reading activity, because in writing also we have essay writing, okay?
Essays writing.
So perhaps essays for next semester, it's different ones usually done in the classroom. How is this a different? Well, for my idea is about reading activity in this classroom, which is slightly different, is that Pak Joni, I think reading in the classroom sometimes it takes time consuming, and then the time provided for our class is not enough. Usually I ask my students to read the passage that we need to discuss in the classroom previously. So when they come into the classroom, we just need to discuss about what is the passage about, rather than provide students to read. They need to read previously. So before coming there into the classroom, students have already read something in their mind and something to say in the classroom, rather than we provide, as the teacher, we provide the reading time in the classroom and then start reading, because I think that's wasted time, and perhaps at the end of the classroom the session is not enough, and then the time is not enough, and comprehension as the goal of reading cannot be achieved. I think that's my response, Ibu Samdianita.
Ardian, would you like to?
I actually have so many questions about academic reading, and when I just I listened and watched Professor Rob Waring's presentations about extensive reading, and I think now it's a very interesting domain to explore the relationship between academic reading and how this could be seen and acknowledged as part of extensive reading. And I'm really interested in exploring that domain, I guess, in the future.
Okay. Now I would like to invite Pak Joni to maybe to say something about his question. Pak Joni, are you there? Pak Joni? Pak Joni has been unmuted, right? Okay. Hello, Pak Joni.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam, Pak Joni. Yes, Pak Joni.
Bu Dia, dari Padang.
Ya, Pak Joni. It's muted again. Okay.
This is also the course for me, but I don't know exactly what the subject look like. I'm confused because this what Pak Adian said, like essay writing. So I'm confused about this. So I don't know what I will do in the class, because I told you that it's the new. So I want to share my problem here. Well, probably there will be solution to solve my problem. Frankly speaking, this is new for me. I don't know what I will do. So I asked my head of department, but there is no response yet about the description of the scores.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I asked. Yeah, I just got the announcement from the head of the department that I will teach essay reading, but I said, please let me know the description of the course, because I have to prepare the material, what I will do in the classroom.
What
So,
semester is that, Bapak?
Wait a moment. I will, wait. Semester 3. No,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Semester. Oh, semester 5, sorry.
Oh,
Semester 5.
fifth semester.
5.
Move.
Now,
it is just like academic reading in our campus.
Yes, I think if it is in the fifth semester, they need to get to the academic reading rather than essay reading. What do you think, Pak Ardian? For me, the fifth semester, they are ready to start to make the thesis proposal, you know, for the following semester. So we need to to prepare for at least some preparation in terms of what they need to deal with in the sixth semester.
Yeah. So I think in their fifth semester, I assume that they will be at the advanced level, ya Budia, yeah. So they're ready for producing.
Yeah, I thought it's going to
be
be in the first or the third semester, but the third semester is too low as well. I mean, in the first semester, yes, would be fine, but not in the third or in the fifth semester.
So it will be better if I emphasize on academic reading. That's right, Budia and Padrian.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So actually we can start academic reading starting from the first semester, because we need to build their skills. Academic reading is actually a skill, and also if we touch the issue of extensive reading, it also builds their motivations to read more and more and to get informations, and especially for getting the skill of managing information. I think that would be a very challenging task to do. So if they are in their fifth semester, I assume that they have quite advanced level and ready for final skripsi, Budia, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Padian and Budia. Greeting from Padang for all, especially Budia.
Yeah.
Assalamualaikum.
Okay, now the time for the prizes. Pak Ardian, are you ready with the question?
Oh, yes. I have mentioned 7 indicators sign. Oh, correct.
May I answer though?
Okay. So I have mentioned 7 indicators, signs that students should be aware of when they are performing academic reading. Now, could you please mention 5 of the 7 indicators of academic reading, showing that you are performing academic reading?
Audience, you can raise your hand, and then here the admin will choose you.
Okay.
If you can answer the question from Pak Ardian, mention 5 from 7 indicators of academic reading. Anyone? Belum ada. Boleh saya? Okay, we're waiting. Or we can go to Budia's question. So maybe they can choose which one is. Maybe they can answer. Budia, question?
Okay. Yeah, my question is very simple. I think I've mentioned couple of times about the important things when the teachers, how to teach strategies in reading, what the teachers need to do, the most important thing. I think I mentioned a couple of times.
Okay, so 2 questions. The first one is about the indicators of academic reading, and the second one is how to teach the strategy to the students. Anyone?
Yes.
You can raise your hand, or you can also answer in the chat box. Where are you guys? Oh yeah, Pak Rob also share. Pak Rob and Ibu Maria also share their thoughts on the questions delivered by the audiences in the chat box. No one? Miss Norma Atika, Bu Norma Atika has answered in the chat box for Miss Dia's question. Give the examples to the students. Is it correct, Bu Dia?
In one word, Ibu, what do you call that?
In one word. Okay,
Only
please
one
concise
word.
in one word. Bu Norma, concise it in one word.
Give examples to the students in one word. What is that? I think, who's that?
Modeling, Bu Norma Atika, modeling and
Perfecto.
okay.
Perfecto, yes, that's the modeling.
And then Pak Ardian, we
Oh,
have
I've got answer there from
Ritantina, yes.
Ritantina.
Ritantina, productive, reflective, synthesis, critical, and purposeful. Is it correct,
Yes.
Pak Ardian? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
it's like Santi is won 2 prizes for today.
Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, we have only 2 door prizes for this session. Thank you very much, Pak Ardian Setiawan and also Ibu Dia Singinwati for the insightful presentations. I would like to give it back to the master of ceremony for today.
Thank you, Budia.
Thank you, Sambu Samdianita. Thank you, Bu
Yes,
Ardia.
you're very welcome. I'm happy to have you. And then I would like to give it back to the master of ceremony for today's seminar. Mas Eko?
Thank you very much, Ms. Yamdianita. This is the end of second session. I will remind you to fill in the exit ticket that is provided in the chat box. Please fill the data correctly because your certificate will be based from your data in your exit ticket. Now we are coming to the end of our online seminar. I will invite Dr. Norah Mawati MED to officially close this seminar. For all participants, please don't leave the room because I will give further information after this closing remark. I will give the floor to Dr. Norah Mawati MED.
Okay, thank you, moderators. Dear presenters and participants, I believe that the past 3 hours that we spent in this event have become meaningful hours and might not be enough as there are still questions and fruitful discussion that we expect. However, hopefully, participants in this one-day online seminar with the main theme empowering students literacy through extensive and intensive reading activities in the 21st century classroom could get the ideas of what and how to conduct extensive reading activities as well as the appropriate tests that follows. In addition, it also hoped that we could combine extensive and intensive reading complementing one another. So if I may assume that the purpose of this seminar has been completely accomplished. Well, I would like to pay my deep respect to all participants for their positive participation during the seminar and my greatest appreciation to all distinguished speakers and Fast Director for Academic Affairs, moderators, MC, committee, and also Dr. Iwan Setiawan for reciting the dua this morning. And thank you for taking time out of the long weekend to attend the seminar. I will close my remarks and officially announce the end of the seminar, wishing a very best luck for every participant to promote literacy, particularly reading awareness and spirits to our young generation. Thank you and see you again in our next seminar.
Thank you, Dr. Norah Mawati MED. This is the end of this seminar. For all participants, the certificate will be sent to your email in about 2 weeks. Thank you for all speakers, guests, moderators, and participants. See you in the next time. Good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Maybe we can take a picture one more time. I'm so sorry, Mas Eko.
You can take over.
Yeah, because we have a lot of participants, so maybe kita ada maybe take-nya 6 kali because there are so many windows here. Kita coba dulu yang pertama ya. Jadi biar semuanya kena semuanya. Okay. Wait a minute. Okay, you can turn on your video. Okay. Kembali kita tutup dulu. You can turn on your video. Okay. Let's try first for the first slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you. Now for the second slide. Okay. Okay. Still it's loading. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Now, one more time. Ya. Ini mungkin yang komen kirim pesan-pesan di chatnya nanti dulu karena tidak terlihat foto profil yang di bawah. Ya, oke. 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Oke, sabar masih ada 2 lagi. Boleh ganti-ganti gayanya. Ini. Oke, kita mulai. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And the last one. 1, 2, 3. Then thank you so much for the speakers and also for all participants who already joined. You may leave. For participants, you may leave the Zoom now. But for the speakers, please stay for a moment so we can take a picture together with the committee. Thank you so much. Ya, tunggu dulu participants-nya. Speakers, moderators, MC, please don't leave the Zoom. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Oke, sebentar kita cek participants-nya. Mohon maaf, ini participants-nya, you may leave the room, you may leave the Zoom. Ya, izin. Ya. Saya izin remove ya. Iya, saya izin remove ya. Mohon maaf. Ya, baiklah sebentar. Ini remove satu-satu. Oke, permisi. Thank you. Bu Uning, Bu Arida, bisa stay dulu Ibu untuk foto bareng. Sebentar ini saya remove. Mohon maaf. Saya unmute all ya. Ya. Participants-nya boleh ini nanti yang mendapatkan door prize akan kami hubungi kembali. Tadi sudah kami catat nama-namanya. Jadi ini boleh ikut Zoom dulu sebentar ya. Terima kasih.
Oh ya. Yes. Sudah bisa. Biar dibantuin nge-remove-nya, Mi. Dihibur apa, Me? Hah? Anu? Sama pipit. Kita tunggu sebentar lagi ya Bapak Ibu. Wait for a minute.
Oke, videonya sudah dinyalakan semua. Bu Ita.
Bu Ita yang
Ibu
memakai nama Pak Effendi Limbo.
Bu Ardi.
Bu Arida mana? Bu Arida udah leave.
Bu Arida lah.
Ayo, siapa yang kick out Bu Arida tadi?
Bu Arida live sendiri nih loh. Bu Arida live sendiri. Kita salahkan Ame kalau ada.
Ayo kualat loh.
Oke.
Hey.
Oke. Ibu Ita. Ibu Ita tadi ada.
Bu Ita ada tapi nggak nyalakan video, Me.
Oh, oke. Baik, kalau begitu kita siap semua ya. Terus.
Nah, itu Bu Ita udah dah.
Oke. Nah, oke. Layarnya juga pas satu kali.
Ada?
Ini ada Miss Ani dan Miss Wati. Kok tidak ada ya di tempat
Miss
saya?
Wati ada, Me. Kamu, Me. Kau kualat. Ada, Me. Kak Isa, punya aku.
Iya.
Engkau punya Ame aja bagus.
Tempat saya enggak. Nah, ini Miss Wati sudah ada. Miss Ani
ada.
Belum muncul.
Kamu aja.
Belum muncul di tempat saya.
Di tempat
Iya.
saya. Me.
I have everyone already, Me.
Iya, anu kayaknya sama Ame di blok.
Aduh, tempat saya enggak ada. Kalau di take Miss Setiaannya enggak ada.
Sudah kamu sini.
Okay, I can take it for us.
Yes. Ya, tuh ada Miss Lola tuh.
I will send to all of you. Okay.
Thank you, Miss Lola.
Pose.
Bagaimana kita?
Yeah, pose 1, 2, 3. Okay, once again. Do you hear the shutter shot?
Yeah.
Okay then. All right, so 1, 2, 3. Smile. Yay! How many more times? Twice is it?
More. 12 times.
Not every day I get a picture taken with so many beautiful ladies.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pak Rob, you should show the books again. The graded
Yeah, I was
books.
actually curious about the book.
And I have also 2 of your edited books. I have 2.
Oh, you've got some of my books.
I have it in my home, Milo.
Yeah, Nita also. Okay,